Hello.
We're doing this again. We're doing another podcast. We're
Yeah.
doing this again. Kyle bought a new little mascot.
Yes.
A new little mascot.
Introducing
Hang on to his microphone.
Introducing to everyone for all time immemorial, we have our newest co-host on the Galliard Group podcast. This is we with the help of the server, we gave him a proper Garo name. This is Fluffy Mauls the Worm. Say hi, Fluffy.
Yeah, you know Rap Red's gonna want credit for that in the comments.
I know, and he will get credit in the comments. I need to find a way to secure him.
Where it's due.
To secure him more on this.
Yeah. No, this is not how we're doing the full episode. Hey, guess who I am? I'm Burger Krieg. All right, I can't say anything bad about him. I do like his content. All right. Did you just start without me? Did you just straight up without me?
Here's to Mother Gaia.
I'm gonna strangle you through the microphone, to the camera. That's what I'm gonna do. My shot is in the toolbox. I gotta pull out the tool chest.
I'm not doing a shot. I gotta work tomorrow, my man.
You're in your nice little house. I'm in this rundown house that I'm squatting in to evade the taxes and the property tax.
But that is me, Mr. Depp. Stop posing as it. I'll teach you the proper ways of squatting and tax evasion later.
We have Lieutenant Sec Victor is back with us again, and formerly known as JG120, we have J-Slux with us for the first time on this channel.
Hello, everyone.
He is making Minnesota Midnights. He's making Minnesota by Night, Minnesota by Red Cross Minnesota. Whatever a mage game is supposed to be called, it's all coming together, and it's so good my voice cracked. That's what it is.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
All right, so now pick that up. Pick that up now. We're going to drink it for real this time. Now, what is in this mystery substance? It is tequila that I put a squirt of coconut juice and lime into, so I'm not choking on it.
Fancy little cocktail. Here's to Mother Gaia.
All right, let's do it.
The Mother Gaia.
All right.
To Mother Gaia, the eternal mother.
I love PBR, bro.
Yeah, that burns.
He did a shot. I'm just drinking beer because I got to work tomorrow.
Yeah. So do I, but you don't see me making an excuse.
I'm making excuses, damn it. I won't make all the excuses.
Right. And I can still wake up wide awake and everything for... Oh, my God, this aftertaste sucks.
Remember, Johnny, I did this to me.
At first, taste is fine, but then the more it sits in your mouth, the worse... Oh, my God, the worse it gets. Well, do I have anything? Yeah, I have a bag of flaming hot Cheetos in the room. All right, let me turn this freaking camera off. All right.
We're off to a sterling start to the episode, fellas.
Let me get to where I usually record. Oh, for fuck's sake, it's in the back of my throat.
All right, where's give me a title page for this so we have.
See, it makes for a better mixer. Just put up our usual title page for now.
All right, fair.
So, there's only one book that we're using for reference for this. It's the Book of the Wyld, where I would not call this essential reading. You don't really need to have this. It's just good to have. Because it's about, I don't know, the direct line manager of the Geru Nation, the guy you're getting most of your gifts from. Sure, you got Gaia and all of her gifts. But it's the Wyld who still has a voice. Gaia has been silent since the 50s. So guess who you're going to worship instead? And depending on some theories of it, oh, for fuck's sake. Where did I put the Cheetos? There they are. Okay, I need this.
Don't crunch into the microphone.
No, you don't want to hear this whole thing. I don't have
Are
crisping
Cheetos of the Wyld?
Only the Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
I'm eating the Flaming Hot right now. See, let's get this in my mouth.
Make my booty hole itch, but it's alright.
Alright, there we go. That's fair. Okay. There's a reason they made a whole movie about these things.
Wait, really?
The Flaming Hot Cheetos movie, yeah.
Did they actually?
Yeah, and Joe Biden had a whole screening for it at the White House. We did a little granddad fist pump. And he said, this is a movie that talks about the American dream. You get to work for a corporation your entire life and never get promoted.
What the fuck? This is actually... Man.
This is literally 1984.
This is some nut shit right here, bro.
I wish I was high right now.
And speaking of Sleepy Joe, he just dropped out, and now Killer Kamala's in power.
The Shanti of entropy disguising itself as the Shanti of status.
I have never seen anyone in my life who's able to say everything and nothing at the same time.
Word salad like Werewolf 5e.
We're giving money to the banks and community because the banks are within the community, and if the banks have money in the community, they're able to give back to the community, and the community can give back to the banks.
Oh,
Did I say anything of value in that?
Yeah,
But
it's,
you're just repeating the same thing.
Yeah, I'll say the same.
Interchangeably.
The more I speak, the smarter I sound. Exactly.
Oh,
Alright.
yeah.
Honestly, you kind of just sounded like a guy from the Syndicate that just trying to shout some PR stuff at a New World Order agent.
See, precisely, the Syndicate runs the world through money. You love money, the magic of money. Let's get the lounge music out of here. Okay, it's gone. We begin.
They went after Andrew Jackson because he knew too much.
They shot him in the chest, and then, like the Sigma male we wished he was, he got right back up, shot the guy who shot him in the chest, and then walked away.
I heard that he assaulted the assaulter with a cane.
He had such Sigma male energy. He was the side-facing Chad of presidents, but at the same time, he was a complete psychopath.
that's funny as shit.
Honestly, I probably would too, considering his whole, what happened to him during the election. Like, the poor man almost lost his mind.
Mm-hmm. And he took it all out of the Native American population. There's your picture. That's what the book looks like.
Okay, we got a high-res picture, higher res than the one that I got.
Now, ironically, this is more like a mage book than a werewolf book, because who did the traditions get their power from? The Wyld.
Yes.
Precisely. But who allowed the Shaolins to exist? The Wyld. Who made room for the Dreaming? The Wyld. Who might have made the Fallen? Maybe the Wyld. The Wyld is a very enigmatic entity that we get to talk about. I love and I hate the Wyld, the way it's portrayed in the World of Darkness. I wish we had more information on the Wyld, but he is written in such an ambiguous way. We're never given a straight answer on him. So I'm stuck in this limbo where I'm happy with what we got, and I wish we got more. That's where I'm going to be with the Wyld forever, basically. I guess I'm just going to have to write my own content again. Oh, wait, I did. But we're not here to talk about 3.5. We're here to talk about what's in the book. And then I can toot my own horn later.
Maybe. I was about to say you're in good company, but we're not talking about Minnesota Midnights. We're talking about the Wyld.
Yeah, with the Wyld. This book has got some fun content in it, but I wouldn't say you need to get this like the Book of the Worm. Let's begin with history. We know this story by this point. Why are we going over this? Okay, in case somebody's seen this for the first time, we'll go into it. So, what came first, the Wyld or Gaia?
Wyld.
The Wyld.
The Wyld.
The Wyld.
Unless you're talking to the Geru Nation, they want to say Gaia came first. Where
I was about to say Gaia, but I was like, wait a minute, the Wyld created Gaia, so the Wyld would have.
You see, you've been talking about the Shadow Lords too often.
Wait, is the Big Bang the Wyld? Like the Wyld created the Big Bang?
Yes.
Ooh.
That's what he is. He is creation and birth personified and deified. Stuff cannot exist without the Wyld. Now, you could say the worm came first, but I honestly think it was the Wyld who predates the worm and definitely the weaver, because something needed to exist for death to exist. The Wyld, the Wyld created itself, or came from somewhere that we don't know about, and just brought himself into existence. And through his presence, he created his own antithesis with his arrival in the worm. And these two would, of course, battle each other for all time. The Wyld would make something, the worm would destroy it. The Wyld creates, the worm kills. And so on and so forth. And in their struggle against each other, the two would eventually create order from each other. The Wyld's desire to rein in the worm and the worm's desire to overcome the Wyld creates the Weaver. And all three of them managed to collaborate and make the best creation to ever exist, Gaia. That's how the story starts. And what goes on from there, the Wyld, of course, creates and creates and creates, going from the Red Talons book. The Wyld creates plants. The worm and the weaver complain to Gaia. Gaia talks to the Wyld. The Wyld creates animals. Same thing happens. The Wyld then creates people. Then the Wyld creates spirits. Then the Wyld creates afterlives. Then the Wyld creates the changing breeds. And the Wyld just continues to make stuff. That's just what the Wyld does. He makes stuff. But who is the Wyld exactly? Now, with that name, you would think he's nature personified. That's not true. I would say Gaia is nature personified, but the Wyld is birth. He is the prime mover, as St. Thomas Aquinas would say it. He is he who brings being into being. Nothing can exist without the Wyld. Nothing can be destroyed without the Wyld, because nothing would be able to be destroyed. Nothing would be around to be destroyed without the Wyld. So technically, the Wyld is the strongest member of the Triat. But why is he losing?
Because the Wyld's too unfocused.
We'll get into that with the Weaver.
I was just about to say, the Wyld is a generative force. It creates absolute chaos, which is given order by the Weaver before it is destroyed and returned to chaos by the Worm, where the other two of the Triad went insane. The Wyld is diminishing, being squashed out by the Weaver, technocracy, and destroyed recklessly by the Worm, which would be the other forces.
Yeah, I was under the impression that the Wyld had the same problem that the Beast of War did on the side of the Triadic Worm. Because, like we said, the Beast of War is actually a force to be reckoned with, but the only issue is that it's so dim and unfocused that it can't actually accomplish anything. The Wyld is going everywhere and nowhere at once. It wants to make all the things, but has no form to give it to them, so they just kind of plod along with all their mutations or whatever the hell happens to them, and they don't really do anything then.
There's this Lovecraftian nature to the Wyld, where he's very similar to Azathoth from the Lovecraft stories, where he's this almighty idiot. Nothing can exist without you. Your dreams create reality, but you can't manage yourself. Your creations have to manage you. And the Wyld is beautiful and it's disgusting at the same time. It's this eternal paradox that will exist forever, and also the reason why the apocalypse might never happen. Because, sure, an event that we can refer to as the apocalypse can happen, but the Wyld is never going to stay dead. The Wyld will always exist because death needs life to exist. Life needs death to exist. So you will never have to worry about the Wyld dying. That's impossible. That cannot happen. But on top of that, Victor's restarting his computer. But on top of that, the Wyld, he might be God with a capital G. It's implied that he's that God. There are a lot of things that are attributed to him, such as many different miracles, the way he appears through nature and natural events, the way he dominates natural phenomenon, not just air, earth, wind, and fire, but time, gravity, everything else, because what you would know from the traditions, that also stems from the Wyld. Your ability to dominate the spirits, your ability to manipulate correspondence, your ability to control time, the prime sphere of magic, that all stems from the Wyld. And perhaps the Wyld holds the 10th sphere of magic, but only the Wyld is going to know that, and we might not ever get that power. Because everything the Wyld makes gets tampered with by the Weaver, or corrupted by, or destroyed by the Worm. Why would the Wyld want to reveal the 10th sphere if it has the risk of being controlled or corrupted?
There's also the risk of, there's a potential of just the wondering of the 10th sphere's existence. Even if it didn't exist, just people speculating about it has a chance to bring it into existence.
With the nature of consensus, and deciding what the 10th sphere could be can alter reality as we know it.
Honestly, this is why I hate the technocracy. They have so much potential to be an interesting faction, but they're fucking boring. Designed...
You're not supposed to like the technocrats, but you like the technocrats anyway. You also like big government, you also like giving up your personal freedoms, you also like eating bugs out of a bowl.
It's like your ex-girlfriend. She always keeps on finding a way to come back, and I do not fucking know why.
I swear, if you like the technocrats, unironically, you're the same kind of people that want the World Economic Forum to control you.
Yeah,
Billions must smile. Billions must live. Sorry.
The meme that spawned from that, but that's not to toot my own horn, but with Minnesota Midnights, if I'm remembering correctly, I took everything I hated of the technocracy and I did what I wanted to, reducing them back down to their base concept and rebuilding them with a history that is intertwined with our real life history here in the real world. And I did that. Okay, so we use the supernatural in our stories to weave details together and make sense of insanity. But in Minnesota Midnights, with the technocracy as an example, I did the opposite, where I was telling a story with the supernaturals in the first place, but I used real life events to sew together details on why some of the splats acted very out of character otherwise.
With the technocrats, if you see them as a faction that wants human supremacy, they're okay. If you see them as a group of the Wyld or the Weaver or the Worm, any sort of Triat connection between them, they fall apart as a group. I see nothing Weaver related in the technocracy, even though the Weaver profits from technocratic advancement. The technocracy does not rely on the Weaver, and that's why I say you gotta separate the two. But with the Wyld,
exactly.
You know the reason why the Weaver and the Worm hate the Wyld is because the Wyld creates and that's it. You can't reason with the Wyld. The Wyld just does whatever it's going to do, and it doesn't care what you think. It's just going to create and improve forever. So the Weaver and the Worm look at it. We have control over all mortal life. Okay, the Wyld is going to make spirits. Now you gotta manage the dreaming, now you gotta manage the Umbra, now you have to manage avatars, now you have to manage the Shadowlands, now you have to manage the Abyss. We now have a reason for the Abyss to come out. The Worm comes in, pulls out the Oblivion, and all the fun that gets to come from that. But basically, the Wyld just never stops what's doing, and it runs counter to the Weaver. The Weaver is order, trying to make order out of chaos. The Wyld is never-ending chaos, therefore the Weaver and the Wyld are always going to be at odds. The Worm hates the Wyld, not because it's chaos versus chaos, which is what it is. It's because the Worm is on his cosmic revenge quest. Everything must suffer for what the Weaver did to it. That includes the Wyld, even though the Wyld was technically innocent in the entire conflict. And the Weaver has an edge over the Wyld. You know the gauntlet? That thing that separates the human world and the spirit world? The Weaver made that. And
difficulty 9 for a laboratory, if I'm remembering the graph correctly.
Yeah, the more banal or constructed a place is, the stronger the gauntlet. The Weaver had been working on that project in secret. This is after Ananasa defects, so to speak, that she makes this. And the Wyld looks over, hey, Weaver, what are you doing? Oh, no, screwing you over. The Weaver reaches in, takes this massive dimensional wall, slams it down, and permanently splits the mortal world and the spirit world. And in doing so, forces the Wyld out of the mortal plane. The Wyld used to just walk around on the material world. He just used to be on Earth. The fun. Imagine meeting the Wyld in person. You would go insane. But
I was just about to say, there's a bit of overlap between that and the mages, because before the Order of Reason, the mages themselves were taking advantage of that to not only the traditions with Atlantis, where there was a lot of shady shit going on, but in general, mages were basically just using the entire quilt of reality as their cosmic plaything, to the expense of non-awakened sleepers.
Yeah, all the spells that would just fall into your lap, now you gotta work for it. Now you gotta awaken for it.
Yep.
And in doing so, the Wyld ended up on the losing side of history. Because the Wyld used to just make whatever he wanted and would throw it out right into the world. It would be a same-day delivery. Now he's gotta do it by snail mail. What the Wyld used to be able to do is that whatever he thought of, it existed. Now he has to work with what already exists. The Wyld will look at something. we have to work on a atomic or a single cell level, and then we have to build and add on top of it. It's if I were to compare this, Kyle, it would go from just making a Lego set within the blink of an eye to needing to build every individual Lego piece by piece.
Yeah,
and depending on what you're making, depending on what you're making, it could take a week or a month, depending on what you want.
Yeah, especially if you make it all yourself.
As much as I genuinely...
As much as you what?
I apologize.
You're good.
I was about to say, as much as I hate talking about Mage, it kind of is pseudo-relevant, even though I have called it clown shit many times over. Yeah. Again, before Y2K, the technocracy was making that even harder, but post Y2K, they've actually started realizing, oh shit, we might have fucked the entire world over by pure accident.
Yeah, you made threat null after you decided you wanted to nuke the Shadowlands. Now you created the Borg from Star Trek. And in doing so, you basically ensured the extinction of the human race. You're just delaying it by this point. Yeah. Which is, there's such a thing as too much order. Now, is the Wyld necessarily a good person? Not necessarily. As we said before, the Wyld just does whatever he feels like, and that's it. You can't necessarily reason or bargain or negotiate with the Wyld. But granted, there is a theory in the Book of the Wyld that he might be the Judeo-Christian God. Yep. He might have created Jesus Christ. He might have made heaven. He might have been behind all of this because he's not just nature. He's what lords over nature. Now, Kyle, you remember the plagues of Egypt, don't you?
Yes.
Fuck
you remember
that movie?
Every individual plague, all 10 of them, had a direct correlation to an Egyptian god. Did you never notice that?
That I didn't know, actually.
Blood, Sobek.
Because the first plague, the turning the river into blood, that was to spite Geb and Sobek, the god of the river and water. And every plague that would come afterwards would be a direct spit in the face of a pagan Egyptian god, showing that an almighty deity could just dunk on whatever polytheistic deity you can think of. Because after all, you only control one thing. Put before a being that controls everything, you mean nothing. That's what the Wyld can do. The Wyld doesn't just make druids. He makes clerics, paladins, bards, sorcerers, and warlocks on top of that. He is not just trees and grass and flowers. He's also divine light from heaven, coming down to smite you and turn you into a pillar of salt. He has the same sort of capriciousness as God as he's portrayed in the Old Testament.
Yep, the book of Leviticus and the tabernacle. Sorry to...
Yeah, you can talk to the Wyld. You can have conversations with the Wyld, but at the same time, you are always beneath the Wyld. You will never overcome the Wyld. The best you can do is for the Wyld to view you as an equal, and that's as close as you're going to get. So stuff like Moses, who would be something like an Aret 9 mage in the World of Darkness, that's as close as you're going to get to the same level as the Wyld. You will never get that 10th level. You will never be on the same power level as the Wyld, because the Wyld's not concerned. He's not concerned about the Weaver overtaking everything. He's not concerned about the Worm winning, because he knows it's never going to happen. After all, I can just make the thing that's going to destroy the Weaver. I can make the thing that will overcome the Worm. If I had the power, and I had the mage and his avatar to do so, I could just have life eternal, and there'll be nothing that the Weaver or the Worm can do about it. So why is the Wyld losing? He's not, actually. He's instead taking things the hard way. The Wyld can win this war at any time, but that would mean that there would be no game left to play.
Whoa,
and after all, what would the world look like if the Wyld did win? You take planet Earth.
Second Big Bang.
Take planet Earth, and every other celestial body in the world, from other planets like Venus and Mars to the stars in the night sky, and they just grow forever. With Earth, that molten liquid core, you just have rock forming underneath it forever as matter just makes itself, causing the Earth to rapidly expand. Water just appears in the ocean, and you just have a world that just expands forever. And eventually, after millions of years, billions of years, Earth would come into contact with Mars and Venus and fuse with the planets as they would smash into each other. And then the sun would catch onto that, bond with the planets in the galaxy, and either burn them and make a new star or create this giant planet where it would form its own crust and the sun would become a core. And then it would just continue to expand until the Milky Way comes in contact with Andromeda. And then there's no longer space. There is no night sky for Atlas to hold up. Everything is just caves. Everything bonds with each other, and light just comes out of the ground instead of the sky. And everything would just be this chaotic mess where every biome would exist in one space at the same time and nowhere at the same time. Everything would just grow and exist forever. The Wyld knows this, and instead allows order and the death of that they're presented by the worm and the weaver to exist. That's what the world has. So he's not scared about anything. He knows what the world looks like, and he allows it to happen.
Yep.
That's the thing with the Wyld.
Yeah.
And while reading through the Wyld, there was something I noticed. World of Darkness is not afraid to wear its influences on its sleeve, because after all, the Korax were made because someone on White Wolf read Ravenloft and became inspired by the Were Ravens. That's the reason why we have Korax. And same thing with the Ratkin. The reason why the Ratkin act the way they do is because somebody saw the Skaven. Exactly. So the Wyld is influenced by one character in 40k in particular. I bet you can guess who. Zinch, exactly.
Zinch, let's fucking go. My favorite.
After all, how is the Wyld described? The Wyld is described as a constantly evolving, changing entity, where just what he thinks or what he does, his basic movements, alter his appearance. He never stays one physical form for any length of time. He's always changing his form. He always has a veil of magic over him. He's in a realm, Flux, that is always changing, is described as labyrinth in design, and has no real rhyme or reason to it. A lot of the Wyld's direct servants appear as fish or birds. And he is an entity that knows what the world looks like, allows a war to continue even though it seems like he's losing. He's been in control the entire time. And is presented as a capricious being that is always looking for change, differences, evolution, and hope, which appears multiple times in the Book of the Wyld, that the Wyld is sort of like a deity of hope. He is Zinch. He is Zinch. That is what he is.
I was just about to say, basically a less annoying version of Zinch.
Yeah, Zinch in 40k is this cosmic Twitter troll that just dunks on you forever. The Wyld is what Zinch would be if he was neutral at best.
I do feel like we've made this comparison before in the past, but yeah.
We have made it before, but I really wanted to elaborate on it now.
Well, yeah, it does make sense.
If you're wondering about who I'm talking about with fish and birds, the Korax and the Rokea.
All right.
That's what I'm referring to. Because after all, the Wyld's best creations are in the ocean. You know, we did the whole Rokea episode.
Yeah.
Just the amount of fun stuff the Rokea have to play with that every other changing breed doesn't. You notice that?
Yeah. I mean, the Rokea aren't as complex as, say, like the Macaulay, but even still, it's cool as shit to play a Wereshark.
So if you want your visual depiction of the Wyld, I'm going to give them to you. I know this picture is not canon, but this is the best we've got. Yeah, there you go. That's the Wyld. That's the
kind of
Wyld
fucking cool looking, though.
That's the Wyld. That's what he looks like at that. That's what he looks like at that moment. You blink your eyes, he's going to change appearance.
And honestly, it kind of reminds me of like the Nihilith from the end of Half-Life.
Because after all, the Wyld is the most amazing thing in the world. He can make himself look like anything he wants at any time.
Oh god, I have a new idea for a character for Mage now. A guy who's played way too much of the 40k tabletop, and he has a fucking awakening and sees that.
And he looks like Azek Araman.
Oh god, that's the cherry on top.
There it is.
I don't know if there was a song that I could think of that could kind of explain the Wyld. I think of Electric Uncle Sam from Primus.
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I'm your electric Uncle Sam.
There's Oh my god! If we had a mage that was Isaac Aramon, that'll probably be my favorite lore character. In 40k, Aramon is my favorite character, with no doubt he is my favorite. But I digress. Back to the wild.
I was just about to say, give me like 1 month to save up my cash so I can get a copy of the book off of DriveThruRPG. Half of a year just for wherever it's printed at to be bound and show up at my doorstep, and then another week to read through the absolute clusterfuck that is Mage the Ascension and figure out how the different spheres interact with each other. And yeah, I can come up with an XB mage character based off of Ahriman.
Because Mage the Ascension takes a while to wrap your head around. That is a complex game.
Yeah, I think on the
Again,
good.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. When I think of spears, my dumbass keeps on thinking of the very ending of Men in Black, where it's like the universe zooms out and it's like little marbles or something.
That's what technocrats want you to believe.
Basically, I mean, for me, it's like
one of them.
I think on the scale of difficulty when it comes to World of Darkness games, definitely Vampire the Masquerade is probably the most approachable next to Changeling.
Next to Werewolf and next to Changeling.
Yeah, I think Werewolf
Mage
takes
is fucking clown shit.
yeah.
Isaac Newton was a technocrat plat to invent fucking gravity.
Yes.
Yeah, no, fucking
Yeah,
Mage is
there's-
nuts.
Gravity didn't exist before? Oh my god, we were floating and shit.
Exactly. Well, according to the technocracy and Mage the Ascension, yes, it's full of stupid bullshit on that, which is why I will call it clown shit till the day I die.
It's
Because
a
there's
shit
so much in it
post.
that's fucking stupid.
Yeah, but then it's like
It feels like Mage. I will give Chronicles one thing. Awakening feels better to play, but that's all I'll give you. That's all I will give you.
But so it's like Mage
Yeah,
gets on the higher end of difficulty, and then don't even get me started on fucking Demon the Fallen or Mummy.
You gotta think abstract and creative with those powers.
Yeah, you need some like glowing. You need to just take some DMT and sit around a table for 10 hours to play Demon the Fallen.
I swear to God, one of these days I need to come into this podcast like high as a fucking kite, just laughing my ass off.
Off desktop cleaner.
No, like actual weed. Like, come on, I live in Oregon. That shit's completely legal.
It slows you down. We had a player in our Thursday game that we had to kick out because he came into too many games stoned.
He was just high off his balls, eating Olive Garden, and just saying the same things over and over.
Not listening to a fucking thing we were saying. Like, I'd come in here, I have my heart on a fucking sleeve, and you come in stoned.
What are we doing? Oh, there's a big dragon? What?
Oh my god. I tried getting serious with Vampire. That was me trying to tell a serious story, and that's what you fucking get. Oh my god. Yeah. We ended up putting that to a vote.
I mean, I'm role-playing a stoner.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was just about to say, imagine being a human in the world of darkness and you see a plate of brownies on a table, you eat one, and then you awaken and have a conversation with God.
That's what they're doing with the weed, with the marijuana. They put so much THC in it artificially, you trip so hard you never come back down.
Yeah.
Now, that would be just really funny, like taking stuff like that and then go, what would happen if this happened in the world of darkness with the context of Mage and Werewolf? Like,
well, you just described the Cult of Ecstasy.
Yeah.
You just described
it. That's basically it. You go to the North Pole with Freya Sanders, and then you just get your smoke on or your fuck on, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're a mage. You've awakened.
You get a lap dance and a blue sticker. Everybody gets one.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Now, what is the Wild's relationship with the Gaia? You may be asking. They are not friends. The book goes out and say it. The Wyld and Gaia are not friends. It is a strictly business transaction that the two of them have with each other. The Gaia asks the Wyld to make something. The Wyld sometimes agrees. If the Wyld likes the idea, he will make it. If it means that the Wyld will get to make more stuff off the back of it, he will make it. Because the Wyld didn't stop at the Makole and the Rokea. He could have just made those two. That would have been it. Gaia approached them with ideas for, say, the Korax, the Werewolves, the Bastet, everything like that. And the Wyld made it because the Wyld liked the idea. But the Gaia knows that she can't turn to the Wyld for anything. Because after all, the Wyld almost population bombed her twice. First by creating way too many plants, causing massive algae blooms in all of her water that deoxidized all the water and killed all the fish, and then just prevented anything from growing because all the trees that grew massive size choked everything out from sunlight, from prevent the sunlight and prevent the roots from growing. And then again, after he made too many animals that ate all the plants and almost left Gaia as a barren husk. So you can't turn to the Wyld. She knows that she can't go to the Wyld to solve her problems. It's not that the Wyld is amoral or immoral. It's that he's operating on a scale of morality that we can't understand. He's in his own world, so to speak.
Yeah.
So Gaia would only ever approach Wyld with business propositions. And now that Gaia has fallen silent in the 1950s, the Wyld is just doing whatever he wants. He's got nobody commissioning him for anything. He just does what he pleases.
I was just about to say, it kind of reminds me of the Zone from the Stalker movies. Not the games, not the book, Roadside Picnic. I mean the actual Stalker movie.
Yeah. Because after all, what the Wyld makes, if you don't check the Wyld, he will make something that could end the world before the Weaver or the Worm can get their hands on it. But thankfully, and I say thankfully, the Weaver and the Worm have grown to a point of power where they're able to keep the Wyld stuff in check. Because what does the Wyld also do? Snowstorms, hurricanes, earthquakes, solar flares, stuff that the Weaver and the Worm managed to create inventions for, and other cosmic forces to prevent everything on the planet from dying because the Wyld didn't think his thing through.
Might be giving the Wyld a bit too much credit. There's some stuff the Worm would love to take credit for.
Yeah, the Worm would just wants everything to die.
Yep.
But at the same time, we have, I don't want to say weather control center, but that's what it is, because we have stuff in the ocean that we can use to control the size of a hurricane. We have that. So a hurricane just doesn't come in and cause Hurricane Katrina all over again.
Hurricane Katrina, more like Hurricane Tortilla.
God,
I was about to
damn
say,
it.
then there's in the prevention of an ice age, you can end up artificially instilling a global warming. However, there's a small problem with that the Worm just gleefully smacks to itself, and the problem is that it's easier to heat things up than it is to cool it back down again. So something the technocracy might have to dabble in vulgar magic to unfuck.
Or grab an ice block and drop it into the ocean every year.
No, make a giant refrigerator.
Yeah, there
A
it
giant
is.
refrigerator.
I'll put a plant inside of it.
My God.
Let's just take Earth and push it a couple degrees away from the sun.
We'll do what they did in the Matrix and just make the sky black and prevent sunlight from coming in.
Didn't
God.
Eggman do that in a fucking Sonic the Hedgehog movie or some shit?
He did it in Sonic Unleashed, where he made the world eternal night.
He pissed on the moon, is what he did.
Yeah, he blew.
Oh
he blew
yeah,
half
that's
the
right. He
moon.
did piss on the moon.
Are going to
I
steal
come to make
the
an announcement.
moon.
Shadow the Hedgehog is a
Chuck is
bitch-ass
a bitch-ass motherfucker. Yeah, he
There's that,
my wife.
there's that entire scene in the Sonic movie where he's saying, I'm retired, I'm not trying to blow up the moon anymore, just leave me alone, fuck off, just leave me
No,
alone, I'm
there was
married, I'm
actually
retired.
like that season of Sonic X where he built like the Death Egg and used it to cast constant lunar eclipse on the planet.
Eclipse.
Where the fuck does this motherfucker get the money for this shit, if I'm being real?
China.
Pulls out of his ass.
You know what? Pentex would fucking love a shit poster like Eggman. The guy doesn't even need to be banned or even be any sort of Nefandi. They just give him money to come up with the stupidest shit because it's fucking funny.
And he keeps getting progress in it.
Yeah, he does.
No.
I mean, I feel like Dr. Robotnik from the original, like Sonic the Hedgehog, would have been more worm aligned than Eggman. Eggman's more of a technocrat.
Yeah.
King is snooping, I see.
Yeah, that was old school, not Robotnik. Friggin' what's his name?
Eggman or Robotnik?
What? No, that was Robotnik. Yeah.
Yeah,
Snooping.
it goes by main names.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, Robotnik and Eggman. Yeah, Robotnik, Wormalind, Eggman is basically just a technocrat who's so sick and tired of the toxically professional 24/7 work culture that he just basically makes all these robots and inventions just basically for the same entertainment as a shitpost.
Literally
Basically.
Doofenshmirtz.
When we do the Iteration X episode, we're going to play his theme at the start of the episode.
Oh god.
That basically what Iteration X looks like?
Either that or fucking Mad Matrix from Shadow the Hedgehog. That game soundtrack goes way harder than it has any right to.
It's better than it deserves to need. All right.
I was listening. Sorry, back on track.
Platypus?
Yeah,
Shit.
now,
Back
can
on track.
you meet the Wyld? You can meet him in small forms. He appears to you, kinda, sorta, in the physical plane as a natural phenomenon. So he has 4 faces. Let's talk about them. The Mammatus. Because the Wyld is creation, he's able to exist in multiple places at the same time, which is why these guys are referred to in plural. The Mammatus are wild spirits that appear as the air. The air itself, the air you breathe. It's either invisible, inaudible, scentless, and you're just breathing it in. It appears like a little pink cotton candy cloud that you can lick and it tastes like candy floss. Or it's a gigantic storm cloud filled with lightning bolts. What does it do? It makes storms and wind. And that's it. It just does it because it's going to. It's the Wyld is what makes the wind blow. Can you tell it where it should blow its wind? Yeah. Will it listen to you? Maybe not. But that's just what it does. So if you want to talk about a strong wind, you're in the presence of the Wyld. How about, let's see what's next, the Empiros, which are wildfire, the Wyld appearing in small wildfires. Now you might be thinking, isn't that the worm? Not necessarily, because you made the fire. You made the smoke. You made the ashes that sprinkled the ground. And you made a new forest from those ashes. That's how that works.
That's the original purpose of wildfire. Just burn off all the dead wood, let the ash, rejuvenate the earth.
What would make it worm is that the fire burns so hot it destroyed the ground beneath it.
Yes.
So are California wildfires wormish or wild?
Well, yeah.
Wild until a chemical gets involved.
Well, no. See, here's the thing: is that the reason that California burns as bad as it does, not only is because of the mass consumption of water from man-made reservoirs that have, highly degraded the quality of the soil in California, but also because of the Australian eucalyptus plants that were imported into California, which is a massively invasive species and takes a fuckload of water and moisture out of the ground. So the reason that everything burns so bad is because there's these goddamn trees that suck up all the moisture, so that way there's nothing to, stop a fire from starting. So yeah.
I don't think anybody should live in California.
Yeah, no.
Why does anyone live here?
You do not understand. I fucking hate Californians. I literally live right above them.
There it is.
And they always come up to your state with
Wyoming.
all their hippie nonsense.
And they always vote. No, wait, never mind. I'm getting into it.
As much as I love-
gotta be quiet.
As much as I love Starbucks coffee, you drink a little bit too much.
Oh, I fucking hate Starbucks.
I just
Yeah.
don't like
I have
coffee.
a friend of mine who's banned from
fucking
Starbucks.
competing
I
against one.
love coffee. I can't go without it.
My precious Ma and Pa shop is forced to not only compete against one, but 2 Pentex subsidiaries.
Well, here's the thing. Your mom and pop shop wasn't giving me hours and were overcharging me.
Actually, no. Our coffees are like $1.
There it is.
Yo,
Everyone else
where the
charges like
fuck is
$10
this
for the
coffee
drink.
shop at?
You can just go to 7-Eleven. It's $2 there.
Man, shut
Or
your
Sheetz
fucking
or
ass.
Wawa.
I'm not
That I'm
going to
working.
7-Eleven.
See, me, I drink the worm juice for breakfast. My boy breakfast is just a can of Monster and a Pop-Tart.
You want to talk about the terrain? You want to talk about the terrain?
Yes.
Because that's the Wyld appearing in earthquakes. Sometimes the Wyld will just pop up from the ground and say, "Excuse me, I need to move this continent to the side to make room for the new rocks I just made." And
please, great and mighty Wyld, please split California away from the rest of the U.S.
Yeah.
and he just pushes Japan off to the side with the same kind of tenderness and care as you pushing a empty soda can out of the way to make room for a dinner plate.
Yeah. It's like fucking. It's like that scene from Bugs Bunny. that scene from Bugs Bunny where he's running away from Elmer Fudd and he saws off Florida.
Yeah.
That's what
Exactly
the Wild
that.
does.
Oh yeah, sawing off Florida. That's right. Shit.
And then lastly, we have the Atlowns, which is the Wild in water. It's just the ocean, or just as simple as the water in your drain pipe. The Wild kind of sort of is a water cycle in a way. Nothing is ever lost in water. That's why the whole like boiling ocean shit, I'm thinking, shouldn't the water come back into the ocean through rain? I mean, why is this an issue? Yeah. But basically the Wild will just appear in water, and this could be something as benign as a rainstorm to, I don't know, a giant tsunami that's going to wipe out your city. And you know who calls these the most? The Ictina. Because after all, the Ictina love aquatic warfare.
I mean,
so there you go.
What was the name of the Roman general that told his troops to fight the ocean?
I know you're talking about the guys who are whipping the ocean.
Yeah, they just started
what's the
I forget.
Wait, there's a clip of Ozzy Osbourne telling the ocean to fuck off.
Yeah.
I know that Roman emperor that you're talking about.
Caligula, the mad emperor who declared war on the sea.
That dude did some fucking like no other man ever did.
Yeah.
Damn.
I will never get as much poontang as Caligula did. That's my biggest regret.
He will always be remembered as the one rover that actually fought Neptune and might have actually won. Because he actually opened the way for further Roman incursions into the British Isles, or the Emerald Isles, Albion.
And then Moses says, "Coward, I split it."
Yeah, there you go.
That was way before it.
Now, what's next? What else can the Wild appear to you as? Passion. Yes, that opens up a lot of doors. Strong emotion. To say a burning bush. Strong emotion is you coming into contact with the Wild. The Wild is kind of, well, once again, the air you breathe, the rain on your skin, the light coming from your bulbs, and the ground beneath your feet. You're constantly coming into contact with the Wild, but on a teeny tiny degree. So, just having a strong emotion, having something you're passionate about, having something you care about, is you coming into contact with the Wild. That kind of raises the question about predestination and how do you know you like what you like? Because after all, how did we find out that we liked tabletop RPGs? And what in us decided that we like that? How did we decide that we like that? Where'd that come from?
Imagination. Sharing our imaginations.
Well, I was about to say.
Yeah, so it's like the people that you are, that's kind of sort of decided by the Wild, isn't it?
Well, yeah, a lot of things are random in genetics. Like, while we can, through a Punnett square, decide how we got what we got, that's entirely still random. It's still left up to chance. Like, you could get one trait left over from, like, your mom's grandmother, and, you know, and you can sort of identify where that came from, but that's still random. You had no say in how your character was picked. We were all basically dice rolled into existence.
Mm-hmm.
I was just about to say, there's also the non-genetic elements of our DNA. To quote, memes, the DNA of the soul.
That's true.
We decided it's important for ourselves. But
that's right, memes.
But then again, how do we come to the conclusion that that's valuable? How do we decide that? It's that whole Rene Descartes quote that always gets misconstrued and used for postmodernism. I think, therefore I am. Where a better translation for that is knowing that I exist is the only thing I can be sure of. That's my own decision. Or my own truth. Because after all, how do we exactly come to these conclusions about what is reality, what is everything else? Thus, the debate between Malkav and Set that was in their clan books.
Yep. What is truth?
The bond between that never healed.
Yeah, so if you believe in a more human-controlled future, then you side with Malkav in that debate. If you do believe that the Wild does indeed control everything, you believe in Set when it comes to that.
But the thing is, I think the Wyld does and doesn't at the same time. Because it's that powerful enough where it can decide what you're going to be, but then does it really decide what you do? God gave us free will, and if we are, humoring the theory that the Wyld itself is God with a capital G, then God did indeed give us free will.
Then we have the philosophical question. Forgive me if I'm butchering this. And Donnie Darko, part of the concept of the movie was, an object in motion, no matter what happens to it, always reaches its destination. I apologize if I'm butchering the concept.
I was just about to say, even though we cannot choose our genes, we can, however, have the very important choice to choose our memes.
You're right.
Because after all, Kyle, how did we meet? Because we met Christmas Day of 2014.
I don't think we met Christmas Day. I remember I was in drama, and it was a friend of mine who got me into using Google+. That's a throwback, because that site doesn't exist.
Yeah, we used it because we couldn't stand Facebook and Twitter.
Exactly. So basically how that went around is about November. I think it was November 14th. I was in the middle of a production, or at least rehearsing for production. My friend got me into Google+. He's like, there's people you can like RP with there. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you can pretend to be characters and build stories with other people. I'm like, I like writing. Okay. So I love Star Fox. I joined a number of them, one of which was called the Star Fox Expanded RP. Who was on there but Mr. Johnny, who at the time went by the pseudonym of Wilson Maddles.
And that was me.
And that was...
Yeah, we met each other because we both like Star Wolf as villains. And we end up meeting. I thought that you actually had some talent and you actually had some character writing and you understood the setting and had passion for it. And thus steamrolled our entire relationship and look where we are now. Yeah, because we've known each other for 10 years.
For 10 years.
We've known each other for 10 years.
Like here's a little bit of Colt and Johnny lore. We wrote 2 seasons of a Star Fox TV show.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The entire archive is lost because neither of us saved it, and the entire site's gone now. But
yeah,
we did it. We proved that we could do it, and that's probably the reason why we don't suck at D&D is because we actually know what works and what doesn't work for characters.
Yes.
But then again, that whole way how we met each other, what decided those circumstances that of us meeting each other, all these different little events that happened in our lives that decided who we were and eventually post onto the path of meeting each other.
This actually does, not raise a question, but instead answers it. Some people say random chance and dice rolls, but that is literally the same name that others call God. It is the circumstances that those dice rolls, they are dictated. Now, people, again, will argue that no, this isn't a god. This is not a divine being that's dictating this. It's just random chance and nothing beyond that. To which I counter argue and say that's literally the point. Our world is mundane and there is a bunch of chances. However, they can end up with both good and bad consequences beyond what we think. The randomness is the deity.
Because after all, where do some of these ideas come from and who gives us conscience at the end of the day?
Exactly.
Where this is why I say this comes across more like a mage book than a werewolf book. Because it gets into... Because these are the kind of conversations that they're in Old World of Darkness, but nowhere to be seen in Chronicles. And why I will always say classic World of Darkness will forever be better than 5e and Chronicles. I will never say that either of those two are better than Old World. And
Chronicles was written by people that had an appreciation for gothic horror and urban fantasy creatures, but did not read the original books and blatantly missed the point.
You saw Daredevil and you saw Underworld, and you decided you want to make an entire property based around that.
Yep, about that.
That's what it boils down to. And that being said, that kind of adds to the whole theory of the Wyld being God, because if passion stems from the Wyld, and being passionate about something is a wild idea, then would that kind of make the Wyld synonymous with God himself in the context of World of Darkness?
I mean,
it also makes the technocracy even more annoying because they take that passion that other people have, doctors and scientists, and they suck the life out of it.
And when you read, you're familiar with Carl Jung, right? When you read his book Aeon, or did you read Aeon at all?
I have not.
I read the red book.
Yeah. But what the whole thing behind Aeon is that he uses astronomy and coincidences to come up with a theory as to the Antichrist and when he would appear. And the conclusion was he wasn't going to be some sort of divine being that was going to be birthed by the devil or anything. He was going to be an invention of human origin. And whether or not he's a person or whether or not he is a social construct or an AI was more likely than being the son of the literal devil. As to whether or not where he appeared, some theories as to Martin Luther King was the Antichrist, some theories about it being Adolf Hitler, but more than likely, what was going to be the source of the death of religion was going to come from humanity. And that is the technocracy. That is the Antichrist in the World of Darkness. Because you are humans wanting a pro-human future using the tools that God gave you while simultaneously denying his existence.
Yep, that's why I hate the technocracy. They are in such denial and are written to be as so infuriatingly hypocritical as possible that I just, again, it was one of the biggest reasons that I wrote Minnesota Midnights, or the technocratic faction that was part of that. Again, not to toot my own horn, let's move on.
Yeah, I just found that the Matthew quote from the Bible, Matthew 7:15-20, and that sums up the technocracy almost perfectly. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, figs, and thistles?
That's exactly what it is. It's humans controlling humans.
Yes.
At the end of the day. The blind leading the blind. That's always what the technocracy will be.
Or to sum it up, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
The only time that... Sorry. Go ahead.
I guess to grossly simplify the road to hell paved with good intentions, I guess you could grossly simplify it to saying, when things are too good to be true, they're too good to be true.
Very much so.
And that also paves the way for Wraith the Oblivion and Changeling the Dreaming. Because how do Wraiths and Changelings get their powers? Through strong emotion, through passion. Yep. So through Wraiths and Changelings, kind of sorta, if we're going off the Wyld being God, their own existence would prove the existence of God, and those are technically beings of God himself. Yep. If you want to look at it that way.
Yes.
Because after all, your strong emotion as a Wraith is keeping you tethered to the material plane and keeping you in existence in the Shadowlands, preventing you from falling into oblivion. And your existence as a Changeling, you are a being that exists through human thoughts, meant to inspire other human thoughts, and keep humans alive, so to speak, through passion and the will to live.
Speaking of that, I forgot to mention in the Changeling episode, Changeling in general as a game kind of makes me think of Psychonauts with some of the basic premises that it has about exploring the human condition. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole thing about collecting emotional baggage, diving into people's subconscious in order to solve problems within them. I mean, I've been playing it with a buddy of mine, and I've just adored the game so far.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck yeah. It's
also the manga Homunculus, which takes it in a dark, unseelie direction. And this is why I say the World of Darkness, never separate these splats. These are all tied together. And it's the Wyld that's kind of the glue between Werewolf, Mage, Changeling, and Wraith. He's a glue between all that. Now, that being said, too, Demon the Fallen. Is the Wyld the guy who made all the angels? Is that him?
We have no idea.
After all, because after all, we never did get a finished Demon the Fallen. And that being said, though, does that mean the Wyld's true domain, aside from Flux, would be heaven itself? Something that's kept ambiguous. Because you have the whole idea of it being a fluffy cloud heaven, but are we sure that's what all of heaven looks like? We're given a
Hell
detailed
no.
description of hell, because hell is a place that you don't ever want to go to. That's just eternal misery. And you can make that on earth if you try hard enough. But heaven, if we knew what that existed, if we knew what that looked like, would we try to recreate that on the earth? Yes, we would. So it's kept ambiguous and
But the thing is, like, if we would have tried, all we would have done is just destroyed and perverted the image to a point in which it makes life itself seem unlivable. We want to never leave.
Mm-hmm. Because
Yep.
if you had concrete proof that heaven existed, would you choose to continue living?
I mean,
That, in hindsight, I was about to say, that in hindsight makes both the traditions and the technocracy, both in the context of the world of darkness as a whole, evil. Because they're trying to take what they believe is the ideas of heaven and make their ideas and push it onto people who have not decided, let alone barely aware whether or not they want it or if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
The virgin awoken mages versus the Chad imbued.
Yeah, that's one
what
way
it
to
is.
do it. Yeah.
And yeah, that being said too, is the Wyld also the guy who awakens hunters? Because if so,
Probably.
if so,
I mean,
where the imbued, you are so human, you evolve and become a humanoid abomination that is spitting holy fire out through his eyes and seeing the past, future, and present all at the same time. You're human, but you are so above other humans don't think you're human anymore.
So essentially the theoretical idea of transcending the fourth dimension to the fifth, blah, 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 transhumanistic ideas, yada, yada.
It's comparing a Imperial Guardsman to a Primarch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wait, I just had the stupidest idea. What if
Tell
the
me.
imbuement is the 10th circle, like a form of awakening?
That could be.
Oh,
could be it.
shit.
Yeah, there we go.
so then a mage just
you
gets imbued upon reaching a ret 10 and becomes a hunter.
And
Huh.
That or
And
they
then with
become
the imbued,
God, whatever.
yeah, we go through a ton of imbued because you don't have all the other mage bells and whistles, so you die in 3 hits. If you're lucky. Sometimes it's just the one.
So that raises a lot of questions in it. That would require an episode in and of itself, but let's stick with the Wyld for now, but let's write that down for a future episode idea.
Because I would love to talk more about the creeds. Where the Hunter of Reckoning creeds, I think we could just combine them into trios, where the Mercy creeds, they're all functionally the same. I mean, but you have the Avenger, the Defender, the Judge with the Zealot. They're basically doing the same thing, and their creed books read very same. They read out the same book, but yeah,
You can
going over
thank
Hunter
it
again, I would
being
love to do
written
that.
during this. I was about to say, you can thank it being written during the mid-2000s for that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
We gotta
goodness.
crank out this book. We gotta print this book.
Not
Dude.
just that, but also the frickin' Linkin Park being blasted everywhere. Power gaming on the White Wolf forums was actually nightmarishly bad, and it still kind of is to a lesser extent. Thankfully, 5e drove away a lot of the power gamers, but however, it kind of invited its own things that... moving on.
And now we have the World of Darkness subreddit, which is the most banal, bullshit, idiocratic mess I've ever seen come from a fandom. Oh my god, it's just a blind leading the blind on that subreddit.
Oh yeah, I was feeling the poisoning of the worm go through me, so my ass needed to do a rite of cleansing.
It's a rule on World of Dank memes that for every 10 memes that are posted, 9 of them are not funny.
Yep.
This is why I don't use Reddit.
Yeah, it's not it's a complete waste of your time going to those subs.
Yep.
It's like the
And
only time to ever go there is if you ever want to see what I'm talking about with how badly power gaming was at the time.
oh my god, 'cause they wanted it to make Hunter Reckoning Dynasty Warriors RPG, but that's not how it came across mechanically.
I don't know.
Yep.
I kind of passed out when we were playing that game.
Yeah, you're not Dante from Devil May Cry. You're Geralt of Rivia. You go down very quickly in that game.
Yeah.
And let's see here. We've gone through all the real history of the Wyld. The Wyld history that's very short. There's a ton of dialogue in this book. It's written like a mage book where all of this information comes across in dialogue. And I hate Mage the Ascension for doing that because all this information is hidden amongst banter. But okay, here we are. We've finally back on track. Okay, let's talk about Flux.
Yes. What is Flux?
You remember Limbo from D&D?
Limbo from
Remember
D&D?
that?
Well, actually, I just played a high-level one-shot in Limbo, so yes.
So it's an eternal white plane that somebody thought of something, and then that something influenced another something, and that caused a chain reaction that added on to the everlasting expanse of Limbo. It is a realm of pure chaos. Stuff just happens in Flux. It just happens. There's no rhyme or reasoning for it. You can walk on the lava. You can drown in air. Just things just happen in Flux. It's a realm of pure insanity. A normal man would lose their mind in Flux, and a werewolf would lose their mind in Flux because it is the realm of pure distilled chaos.
Not me.
Yeah.
The whole nah, I'd win guy.
Yeah. That what probably drove Malkav insane was just Kane showing him what Flux looked like. That
Yeah,
could've been
pretty
it.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
And
speaking of
yeah, so-
that, there's actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're saying something?
Yeah, I was just reading through Werewolf 20 before we began. There is actually a Bane, okay, not a Bane power, but a Fomori power that also had something similar, where it was show somebody something, and then they all had to make a willpower roll to not see it. But if I can just find it, I'm flipping through the book like literally right now.
Uh-huh.
If I cause insanity. Shatter. Yeah, this one on page 431 of the Werewolf 20th edition book. Yeah, with Fomori with Gnosis from the power of spirit ties may even allow a mortal to peer through the umbra into the depths of a hellhole. Oh God. That would be hell if you were just shit enough luck to either be in Australia, New York, or anywhere in California, because you're fucked.
Now with the holes of the worm, that's throwing you into a place that's pain, agony, and misery 24/7. With Flux, it's throwing you into a YouTube poop video. That's what happens to you.
Dude, I love YouTube poops. 21st century humor, YouTube poops.
Yeah,
I
you
grew up
Yep.
with
You
that.
pull up a
No.
Crobo Productions video. You pull up one of his videos, you throw a man inside of that. That's what being in Flux is like.
Penis, Bob. What do you want, bro?
And that's just what's going on. Uh-oh, silly, crazy, everything's going on in Flux at the same time.
Wacko. Woo! Yeah,
And-
fucking. You gotta watch this Daffy and Wacky Land I
Yeah.
showed you and shit. You
You're
have
telling
to.
me. You're telling me that the early age of the internet, that the virtual adepts accidentally birthed into existence, and the whole YouTube poop era from the 2000s to the 2010s, that was the Wyld basically influencing humanity to give us the great gift of shit posting.
Yes.
Yes.
That's precisely it.
Literally.
And with Flux itself, guess what? It's alive. The realm itself is alive.
Oh dear
It's
God!
alive.
Yeah, where Flux, because the Wyld thought of it, it gained sentience. And the Flux is able to reshape and build itself. You enter Flux is a genius location that knows you're in it, and it will shape itself depending on the feedback it gets from you.
Oh,
Kind of
that makes-
reminds me of Silent Hill a little bit. That freaked me out.
Oh, yeah, but this is like a silly Silent Hill. It's Silly Hill.
Oh, thank God. Okay, so it's the opposite.
Yeah.
But
Makes
where-
me. Sorry.
Where it also reminds me of Promethea It's an Alan Moore comic, the guy who made Watchmen, where that was an entire comic book based around Hermeticism, and it reminds me of the scene where Sophie fights Asmodeus for the second time, where it's this giant spider demon. But after Sophie realizes that she's not going to win the fight and instead talks to Asmodeus, he goes from being this giant spider to being a human, and the two of them just have a conversation. And he says something along the lines of, if you see me with hatred and repulsion, I will be something that you will hate and that will inspire vile from you. If you see me as human and with respect, I will appear as a human that is respectable. It's the way you view me is the way I will be perceived by you. That's what Flux is. How you see Flux and how you interact with Flux will decide how Flux interacts with you when you're in that realm. So you can have entire games in Flux depending on werewolf or mage. And after all, where is Flux? In the near Umbra, right next to the Dreaming is where you can find it.
Huh.
Now why doesn't Flux reach down into the deep Umbra? Because the Weaver has built a pattern web that is keeping it out of the deep Umbra. And if the minute the Wyld figures out how to get past the pattern web to get into the deep Umbra, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Then the Wyld can regain all of his power that was cut off to him by the gauntlet.
Oh, that makes me with the Wyld's power. God, I got two thoughts in my head, but I'll stay on topic. So with the Wyld's power, kind of makes me think of Alucard from Hellsing, if you really think of it, because Alucard is literally the ultimate evil, but he chooses to contain himself with all of his restrictions, because being the ultimate evil that automatically wins, that's fucking boring. You know what I mean? Like instead, you could kind of metaphorically say Integra is the Weaver. The Weaver is just, in a sense, asking the Wyld, like, hey, follow my rules, you know, so I could have some illusory sense of control of my own problems, if you want to interpret it that way.
Yeah. The Wyld just sides with you because the Wyld chooses to side with you. You have no control over the Wyld.
Yep. And it could betray you with a drop of a hat if it wanted to.
And you worried so much about the apocalypse? Guess what? You don't have to be, because the Wyld just has a second planet existing in his own realm called Pangea. Yep. Prehistoric Earth. The Wyld made a photographic copy, 3D printed copy of the planet, has an entire separate universe where that planet exists, and at any time can just leave Gaia behind and go to this new planet.
That is really funny.
And it has its own soul and everything because, of course, the Wyld can give things souls and spirits. It can just do that.
Fuck yeah.
It's just
can it take you with it?
Yeah, so do you die on this hill fighting Gaia? The Wyld can just restart the game wherever he wants. There's a big reset button where he can just start the game all over again.
So this is why
I have mixed emotions on that.
Yeah.
I mean, so to be fair, it kind of all evens out, because we said during the episode where we talked about Clan Zamichi, the Elder has, the super virus that he could just, appropriate everything on the earth into him at the same time. And then actual God has to come down and smite him. And we're still entertaining the theory that the Wyld is God, then that makes sense, the fact that he has that reset button, because he could just come down as the Wyld, smite the Elder Zamichi. And we'll get to why that is later on when we talk about relationships. And then he could just start over again, because he has that photographic copy of the Earth from the time of from prehistoric times. He could just take that, copy it again, and replace it.
If you could just post that in the OBS.
As much as I love just how cheeky that is, I have to admire a cheekiness.
The fucking clocks.
Yes.
It also makes so much of the sacrifice and the death and the tragedy in the world of darkness that it's known for, slightly, like, not really, but there's a side of what was the word I was just working for? I had it on the tip of my tongue. It's not sad. It just
disheartening.
Again, cheeky. What was it? Disheartening is one of the ways to say it. Yeah. Pointless is another one. No, there was an actual word I had very specifically. All right. Guess I'm not saying it. All right. Moving on.
And if you're worried about this being nihilistic, if you're worried about this saying, well, isn't this entire fight for Gaia pointless? Not really. The Wyld can just pick up your soul, wipe the dust off of it, and then reincarnate you as something else. There it is. Your adventure never ends because life itself is in a constant cycle. You will go through multiple existences. You will live eternal lives, and your soul will never go anywhere.
So kind of like the cycle of reincarnation in Hinduism or something like
psychosis,
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, unless, of course, your soul gets snatched by the worm. In that case, you're just kind of fucked.
Yeah, oblivion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Wyld can just make a new soul.
True, but it won't be your soul, but it will be one that exists.
Yeah, it won't be you
some poor schmuck.
It won't be you anymore. It's another version of you.
True.
Like an incarnation, essentially.
Yes. Like how...
Like, imagine some poor soul, like, not only gets his, he gets the knowledge of this, but then somehow gets the memories of every single past version of himself.
And you want to talk about Charybdis next? Which is...
Sure, let's do it.
Its existence is butthole. That's basically what it is. It's this giant suck hole that the worm throws all of his broken stuff into. The Wyld just reaches in, grabs it, and then brushes it off, recycles it, and makes something out of it.
One man's trash,
So
another
you're
man's
telling
trash.
me that theoretically,
Yep.
So you're telling me that theoretically, at any moment, the Wyld can basically just come in like a Deus Ex Machina and theoretically rebirth the White Howlers if he wants.
Yes, and the books themselves say do not do that with the Wyld. It says that in the back of the book. Don't do that with the Wyld because it will take the wind out of your player's sails.
Well, yeah. Duh.
Yeah.
But yes, though, at any point the Wyld could just make a new White Howler.
Yeah.
Or maybe some kind of... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, or to not strip the winds out of this... strip the sails from the wind, you could tickle the sails, essentially, by doing the idea that maybe in some weird, bizarre, indirect way, the White Howlers came back. Like, let's say some weird bullshit, like...
A bunch of Scotchmen decided they want to make a new tribe and called it the White Howlers.
Nah, not like that. More subtle. Kind of maybe like... Maybe you got like some weird microbacteria that behaves like the White Howlers. And yet somehow people know, like, oh, look, it's the White Howlers kind of, sort of, as microbacteria.
Yeah, the White Howlers are still here. They're just really, really small.
Yeah, they're just really small, like little microbacteria, like
the
jumping around.
Creeps in pain, as now it has to hunt down another thing.
Inside the mouth of every Fianna, there's an entire colony of White Howlers living on their tongues.
Shit.
Good lord.
Is there a sound effect of how a machine can cry in binary coding? Because that's the noise that my soul is making.
Have you ever
right
heard
now.
a memory leak?
9-inch nails.
So,
9-inch
yeah, man, I'm pulling
nails.
that sound effect now.
Yeah, just
9-inch
the
nails.
that. Imagine, like, you know, you're like one of the last Fianna, and you manage to barely survive the apocalypse, and you just wake up on Pangea because the Wyld just picked up your soul and chucked it into another werewolf he had lying around, and then a White Howler greets you and just says in perfect Gaelic, "Oh, you've been asleep a long time. Come, we're just about to hunt for today." I would just break down crying.
Right. See here.
Oh yeah, that. That's what it sounds like.
That's the noise of my soul.
That's what it sounds like.
God.
Unironically, that's exactly it. That is the sound my soul made when learning all of this.
That's literally my arm. That's literally the sound that your arm makes when you hit your funny bone.
Yes.
And lastly, we've got a new development, the Broken Lands. You remember what I said about it's not a matter of if, but when the Wild gets back into the Deep Umbra? This is proof. The Broken Lands are places where the Wild has been chipping away at the gauntlet with a toothpick, slowly that the Weaver doesn't notice, and has broken through the gauntlet or has weakened it to the point where you can step sideways at difficulty 2 or something like that. And,
My God!
And slowly but surely, wild spirits are sneaking through the pattern web and are making the place chaotic and wild as fuck. And there we go.
Oh, Xavier Renegade Angel is
Exactly.
a wild show.
And you just get stuff where stuff just seemingly happens. Like it's just a realm of the weird, like the Bermuda Triangle. Where stuff just seems to happen there.
It's like a trail cam, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's a show.
What?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was going to talk about Pocket Realms next. What you were saying?
So, Xavier Renegade Angel is produced by the Wyld, and its creators and script directors are all changelings.
Yes.
Yep, pretty much.
Yep. At Friday night is Taco Tuesday.
Bros be saying that they played Rainbow Six Siege, but they have never seen a Rainbow Siege.
And lastly, you want to make a mage realm because doing so venerates the Wild. You're a mage. You have enough points in spirit and correspondence. You want to make another realm for yourself. Congratulations! You just put power in the pocket of the Wild. There it is. So even if Nafani does this, if Nafani makes a hellhole, you just use wild power in making that.
Let's go.
There it is. Once again, the Worm and Weaver can't do shit without the Wild.
Damn, the Wild just keeps on winning, taking dubs left and right.
And lastly, what does the Wild necessarily want? It is explicitly stated in this book. The Wild wants a rebalance to the Triat. He is not trying to overstep his bounds. He wants to see the Weaver and Worm go back to the way they were before the events of the World of Darkness went off. If that doesn't happen, he's going to reset the game, go off to a new universe with a new Weaver, new Wild. New Weaver, new Worm. That's what's going to happen. Well, that part I added in at the very end, but that's the logical conclusion.
Yeah. What?
There it is.
I was just about to say. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that on a meta level, every storyteller telling their own games, that's the Wild moving on to its next setting.
Oh my God! It's fucking Diavolo's death. Every single death is canon.
There it is. Everything in your games is canon at the same time because the Wild is just making a new universe that he simultaneously exists in multiple places at the same time.
So we are the Wild, essentially.
Yes, we are. Each and every one of us.
Yes, exactly. Every one of your multiverses, that's the Wild.
That is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the Wild will take losses, but will never truly lose.
That actually gives me a little bit of a smile because, again, throughout this entire stream, I will spare no expense to shit-talk Mage, and by extension, the Technocracy. So the Technocracy, basically by being hyper-human-focused and overall just being technophiles, basically fucked themselves into the corner.
Yep.
You can have this universe because the Wild allows you to have it. The Wild has got an infinite number of universes to play with. You technically gain nothing.
I was also thinking earlier of what you said with hellholes, and if you had Spirit and Prime, you could undo the damage that gets done. But the Technocracy would not be able to do that. But if they did, they would not know how because they're too... Well, I don't want to say stupid. Management definitely is, but the average rank and file just would not know.
You've fallen too far from grace to pull it off.
Exactly, yeah. They would need help from either a tradition or a mage that just does not share their mindset.
Yeah. And you want to talk about the direct allies of the Wild? Or more like the people that were kissing up to the Wild and asking for favor? more than anything else.
I mean, you kind of have to. We
That
basically
kinda gives-
proved it's God.
Yeah,
So-
the former sounds a lot more interesting. The latter is giving me flashbacks to the Malfians,
Yeah.
or that one that the Fondi subgroup that are actual Satanists.
Kyle, we get into relationships now.
Yes. So, because the way the book is written, there are some where it's just like one or two sentences, and some where it's like a whole list of shit that it has to say. And one of the ones where it actually has
an age book.
a lot to say is the Red Talons. Starting off with a quote spoken by Crookpaw, Red Talon's sage. Wilderness is not the same as chaos. So the Red Talons
basically is the main character of the Red Talons.
Yeah.
He is mentioned how many times in these books?
Quite a few, if I recall. So,
Honestly, this Book of the Wild,
Did you
Red
know
Talons
that us
in the
vampires
context-
are biologically incapable of defecating because we're on a pure liquid diet? So we can only piss.
well, no, I mean, you could still eat meat as a vampire. It just has to be raw.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But
Yeah.
aren't you supposed to puke it out instead of shit it out?
Yeah.
I think.
only if you have the appropriate flaws.
There he is, this nasty ass pit bull. This is the main character of the Red Talons.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Crookpaw,
Yeah.
the medicine.
I was
He
just
is
about to
gross
say,
looking.
You could have put a picture of a
Yeah.
Brexit geezer and nobody would have questioned it.
Yeah.
Probably
And
could.
That's his Hamid form.
Yeah,
Oh
basically.
my god.
That's funny.
Alright.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so the Red Talons.
This guy has the sex appeal of Victor. This is how ugly Victor is.
What were you
Red
saying,
Talons.
Yeah.
Mr. Mason?
Sorry.
The Red Talons have a very unique relationship with the Wyld, where, for the Red Talons, the Wyld is a release. It's a reminder of the time when wolves ruled the forests, and men knew better than to stray far from the places they resided alongside the Weaver's wedding. The world was strong and a healthy place in the days that the Wyld was in full vigor. So, to the Red Talon, the strengthening the Wyld is a far more direct way to help Gaia. Many of the theurges within the Garo Nation have drawn some odd comparisons between how it's possible for Red Talons to fall to wild corruption the same way Black Spirals have fallen into worm corruption. Of course, the Red Talons will just snort and chuckle whenever they hear this. But, nor do they ever apologize for what they do or what they become to the myriad of changes they've been forced to endure since the Impergium. But, the Red Talons, maintain a healthy respect for the Wyld for the most part as a tribe. And they don't comment too much on the speculations that they are indeed being Wyld corrupted.
Mhm.
Yep. They basically, it's like, Wyld good. More Wyld is gooder.
That is actually really funny and coincidental because, I know we're talking about the Wyld, but when in the book of Minnesota Midnights, a human is he's talking with a guy who happens to be a Red Talon, and he's in Hamid form, and he's sharing his philosophy with this human. So the human basically asks him, "So, are humans or are humans not a creation of the Wyld according to your philosophy?" So the Red Talon realizes it's been put in a corner, because if he says yes, then what the fuck was the Impergium for? But if he says no, then the human replies, then you were wrong to have quit the Impergium. Why did you develop an attack of conscience in the middle of your holy work?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
It's kind of like depending on how you see God himself. If you see him as a benevolent God, then the Red Talons, being direct allies of the Wyld, have fallen from grace and have lost faith in the Wyld's own mission. While if you see God as more capricious and borderline evil, like YHVH and Shin Megami Tensei, then the Red Talons are almost like the force of, say, the Rapture, where they're gods exterminating angels here to put an end to the human race before it can get out of its own control.
I mean, it's already way past that, but
Kind
they
of Red Talons a
do.
little spooky.
Yeah. They do understand, at least some of them, that, you need humans to make Garo.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so
the Red Talons would beg to differ, but yeah.
they can beg to differ
Now,
all
what
they
about the
want.
Black
That doesn't mean they're
Furies?
right. Do you need me to pull up the meme? I made a meme for this. Anyway,
Yes.
no.
Yes.
I'll do it later because I got to read
we
the rest
got-
of this. But
We do have the Black Furies, right?
The Black
yeah,
Furies,
it's on here.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, because that's the first screenshot I sent you, and yeah, the Black Furies. Do you want me to do that one?
Wait, did I completely forget to take fucking notes on that? God damn it! Hang on.
I got it.
No.
I got it under control 'cause I like the Black Furies.
I'll skim through it real quick. I get it.
No,
It's- here it
hold on.
is.
I already got a speech prepared. I'm going to do it.
Wait a minute.
This
No, it
episode,
isn't.
I'm just going with my gut feeling.
So, with the thing with the Black Furies, you know how they have a hatred for men?
Oh yeah,
That's
absolutely.
not-
Yeah.
And there's one man that they do like, and that is the Wyld. They see the Wyld as this ideal husband, specifically for Gaia. The Wyld is the man that conceives with the woman Gaia, and in doing so, birds life on the planet. They have a similar idea. They have a similar perspective of Gaia, the same way that the Verbena say Gaia, where it's a divine mother, and all that live on her body are her creation. And the Black Furies venerate the Wyld as the ideal man. It is what they wish they could see in other men today, but no man is ever going to match up to the kind of man that the Wyld is. To the point where the Black Furies, some of them will just eschew men altogether, won't even tie up a man, drag him back to the cairn, tie their hands behind their back, have their way after force feeding him Blue Chew, and then kill him afterwards. Instead, they will directly commune with the Wyld and do Cambion conception, immaculate conception with the Wyld. That's what they'll do.
That's kind of
in order
interesting.
to,
actually.
out of veneration for the Wyld, or they want to recreate being Gaia.
Almost like the
Is it?
virgin birth of Mary.
I feel
in a
like
way.
that's heretical in some way to the Garrow's theology, but I don't know.
And
Yeah,
after all, the
that-
Wyld doesn't say no, you can't do that. The Wyld goes along with what the Black Furies ask.
That's fair. I mean, it is
So
God
that-
himself they're communing with, so
And you do have the divine Wyld totem Bacchus, who does the same thing.
Oh,
That's true.
honey. You haven't mentioned me in a while. Why haven't you?
It's me, just hello again. Yeah, I just helped conceive with Elmira. Congratulations on being the daddy, Tyler.
That reminds me, there's actually a lost changing breed that was the Minotaur, like the Apophis.
the Fairy,
The Apis. They were supposed to be the matchmakers, and
Yes.
the Greece with again the Black Furies being very inspired by the Amazonians. I forget the name, but it sounds like those two would have been very, very close.
They were.
So that raises a lot of questions. What happened? I mean,
Well-
obviously the War of Rage happened.
The War of Rage happened, yes, and then the Apis died off, and the Apis could come back, but the Wyld just chooses not to make them.
And then there's the progenitors who are trying, but they lack the spiritual mindset. So you end up with Apis in genetics, but you do not have the totems, the gifts, the spirits.
It's
you
like-
know, that whole side.
It's a
I see
punishment towards the
humans-
Geru for doing the War of Rage.
I see humans, but no humanity.
Because after all, they could make the Cabbage Patch Baby. You just needed a man or woman's semen, and then a man or woman's blood. You planted that in the ground, and then used the divine motherhood of Gaia to make a child. It was as easy as
Oh.
that. And that's what the Apis were.
yes.
And same thing with the Gronder being that, but with plants.
Oh, that plant baby being conceived. Weren't there some fairy tales talking about like children being conceived by plants or something like that?
Yeah, the fly of the bamboo cutter.
Yeah.
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 And whatever you want to get from Jack and the Beanstalk too.
Yes.
Shit, I don't see why not.
And so yeah, there's this whole like religious aspect to the Black Furies. That is why the Black Furies are one of my favorite tribes, because
Yeah.
it's more than just feminism to the Black Furies. They are such a complex tribe, and I really do like them.
Yes.
Really,
They're
Yeah,
they're pretty fucking
there's
tight.
more to what meets the eye. When I first heard about them, I was like, this was kind of cringe, but when I let go my ignorant mind and really thought about it, I was like, wow, this is actually a very well thought out written tribe.
Yeah, it
Holy
is.
shit.
And it kind of stinks with Flenderization because W20 didn't carry over any interesting aspect of them, and then 5th edition just abandoned it altogether.
Well,
Yeah.
5th edition abandoned
you
everything.
See why I
is-
got, you see why I got as mad as I did about the Black Furies in 5e.
Yes.
Yep.
'Cause
There
they're a
is
lot more
the
than what
Umbral,
meets
the
the eye.
Velvet Shadow book.
Mhm.
Yep.
And now
Yeah.
let's talk about the Black Spiral connection.
It's odd how much that
Oh,
the book
God.
actually has to say about these guys, but it basically starts out that if the Wyld represents hope, possibility, creation, and birth, the Black Spiral Dancers are just despair and destruction. There is no greater enemy to the Wyld in the realm of the physical that is represented by the tribe of the Worm. If the Weaver wants to, subdue and control everything that exists from the Wyld, the Black Spirals just want to destroy it. And many Spirals will argue that without the Wyld's influence on the Tyrillian, the Weaver would have nothing to weave the pattern web where the Worm has been imprisoned. And, ever tighter the Weaver spins, the more damage she does to the Worm, the more dense the bonds become, and ultimately, the Black Spiral Dancers are united by the singular belief that the Wyld needs to be destroyed in order for the Worm to be broken free, which isn't true at all, if we found out. And since the Worm's triumph is the only way for this world to be remade into something, then they need to destroy the Wyld entirely. But the Wyld can basically do it all over again whenever he wants, so they're completely misled in that regard. But it should come as no surprise that a lot of the places that have, in the past 1,000 years, that the abscesses that the Black Spiral hives use as their foundations, it's honestly, ironically enough, a very confusing thing that the Black Spiral hives are built where they are, because it also becomes a more suitable Wyld abscess as well than a guy in Cairn. It basically how it goes is that it uses the Black Spiral's own tactics against them. The Wyld can just sort of sneak into where that corruption is because there is no law to it, and once it's squeezed its way into the hive and planted the seed of the Wyld, the Black Spirals literally do not have an antidote for it. You can't destroy something that's always growing. You could try.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just going to keep getting further and further out of the hand until the hive's just been completely destroyed. So basically, an effective way for what?
It's the whole hope behind the Black Spiral against the Black Spiral threat too, because these guys will eventually lose.
Oh yeah, but what you can do is you could take a Wyld spirit, manage to get it into the core of a hive, and just drop it like a bomb, and then. But you might lose some Garo as a result, but if you get it in there, then you've demolished that hive. However, there is an issue with this. Once a Wyld spirit has overrun the hive, then what's going to stop the Black Spiral Dancers to just go and fuck up somewhere else, or worse yet, take over a cairn? It's just a vicious cycle that fuels the apocalypse. And it's just going to keep going until the apocalypse.
The Black Spirals are just irredeemable to me.
That's the idea.
I don't think the Black Spirals deserve their redemption. I don't think they deserve to have their pact broken with the Worm. That, hopefully Alex plays on the soundboard.
This is what they've done to these people. They're gone. They're gone. They're gone.
Exactly, that's what the Black Spirals are. Because you signed the devil deal with the Worm. You don't deserve that redemption. You willingly signed a contract where you knew what the prince said. You weren't forced into that because nobody can move your feet and make you dance the Black Spiral. You willingly decided to turn your back on creation, and you deserve the punishment that's due coming to you. You deserve to have your soul smote and removed from existence by the Worm. That's what you're getting. What's coming to you.
You've made your bed, now lay in it.
I was just about to say, walking the spiral and being born of a Black spiral dancer with the blood in your veins are not the same, but I realize that, yes, that proves the point even worse so, because the black spiral dancers, if you are born, which inevitably will happen, if you refuse to dance the black spiral dancers won't just kill you, they will fucking torture you. They will make every waking moment of the rest of your short life a nightmare.
And those souls that you see in Malpheus in the cages, those are people that denied the black spiral dance.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like we talked about this character in the Rage Across Appalachia source book, and I really love her character, and I do not sadly have a way to fit her into the story because, and the fact that all the players know by this point now, there was one character.
It's the Shadow Lord that did the dance, right?
No, she did not do the dance. She was born to Black Spire kinfolk. She was born in perfect Hamid form, had the black spiral in her, but she did not dance it. She, like, quite literally, it said in the book, you know, her dad and her uncle were going to abuse her. She had her first chain, killed them, and ran. And she managed to find Othergero and pass off that she was just a Shadow Lord, but just never got around to being a part of it because she didn't like it. But she knows that she's, you know, kind of trapped. If the Garo find out where she came from, they will kill her. If the Black Spiral kinfolk who she was born to find her, they will kill her. But in all honesty, if she does manage to find, say, like a child of Gaia or something like that, and confess where she came from, would she have a chance? Could she be redeemed? Could she be brought back?
We know with Rage Across Appalachia, because me and you talked about it, where we're going with Insta Road, and what we're doing with her character, and her ties to the BSDs. And that ultimately plays into what we're doing with the arc with her, and the overall theme of, like, sin and punishment with her character.
Yes.
And because, like I said, dude, this game's fucking deep.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I am a very, 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 very firm believer, for very obvious reasons that I won't explain, in the idea of the sin and the son and the father are not to pay for each other's crimes. Each are separate. You do not punish the son for some random bullshit his father did, nor do you punish the father for things that the son has done. They are both to be punished for their own sins individually, which is why I do genuinely feel excessively conflicted with the Black Spirals as a tribe. On one hand, yeah, fuck them, they're evil. On the other hand, the people who were born of their evil, there's a reason why we have the Silver Rivers of Erebus, which is for this reason, with the small problem. The problem being, if you go into the River of Erebus with the goal of getting cleansed to get that black spiral out of you, there isn't exactly a guarantee you're going to get back out, because there have been black spirals dancers in that same river for literally forever.
Because you after all, you signed the devil deal. You can't break that contract.
You may be born of it, but you did not dance it, but you're trying to get it out, but you can't. Even you were born, it was not by your choice, but you're fucked. Your parents, you are basically being punished for your parents' insanity.
Mm-hmm.
And
the game goes deep.
And we did discuss
this.
Tragic.
We did discuss this in the White Howler's Alt History.
Our very first episode.
In the very first episode and the White Howler's Alt History, they were being pushed back on all fronts. They were just being pushed to the absolute brink. I mean, they could have died with their boots
your
on.
own failures, and instead of admitting your own failures and accepting the losses, you instead decided you wanted to maintain yourself. And how you did that is that you signed a devil deal.
Yep, died kneeling instead of standing.
And they did, and it's terrible.
Because you could have and should have gone out the same way the Croatan did, but you chose not to because you were too afraid of your own deaths.
That even makes
and that's selfish.
They become the very things
I was about
they
to
swore
say
to
that
destroy.
kind of makes
Yep. He who
Makes-
stares
That
into
too,
the abyss stares back.
Socks is trying to say something.
Sorry, bro.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm used to this.
Yeah.
I am used to this, trust me. So as I was saying, that makes the tragedy of the child being punished for the sins of their parents who were Black Sparrow dancers even more tragic, because it's the opposite scenario. They want to die standing, they want to purge this thing from their body, but they're fucked.
Mm-hmm. Which is, we'll have to ask Rapid about it later, but what I'm doing with cohorts and blood in our Hunter game, and the moral dilemma that presents. But that's something that I'm saying that for him to listen to in this video.
All right.
And
Yes.
now
So-
we machine gun through the other tribes.
Yeah, the next part of this, there's just like a bunch of real small snippets for the rest of the Garrow. The Bonars, they live at the intersection of the Worm and the Weaver, stuck in the cities, but having to deal with that on a daily basis intensifies why they need the Wyld. And any wild places they find in the city, what little there is, they will do what they can to defend it. They won't kiss up to the Wyld per se, but they will defend it if push comes to shove. The Children of Gaia will toe the party line where the Wyld is concerned, but it's the only member of the Triat to deserve their support. But the Wyld, in their opinion, lacks the grace of Gaia. Fianna are very similar in that mind. Some of the Fianna believe that there is a link to the Fae and the Wyld. While there isn't any empirical evidence to support that, we did discuss in this episode.
Yes, there is.
That it was indeed strong emotions that come from the Wyld and thus help support the Fae. So there is some merit to that. Further still, the Get Ephemeris, they're not philosophers. One of the Triad has gone nuts and they were born to fight it, and one of them needs to be protected. But they prefer associating exclusively with Gaian spirits because they simply don't trust the wild spirits, and they really don't have time for diplomacy when they're trying to kill everything that moves. The Glasswalkers are kind of cold about defending the Wyld, and some of the more radical members of that tribe will talk about trimming back the Weaver in less than gentle ways, the Dias Ultimae for one, and they usually just try to understand the Weaver. They take a very, very restrained approach to defending the Wyld, and anybody that says otherwise usually gets, told that they're a radical and told to shut up. The Shadow Lords are actually, remarkably pragmatic about working for the benefit of the Wyld. They also don't trust the Wyld, but then again, this is the Shadow Lords. They're used to working with people they don't trust. The Silent Striders basically just learn about wild places and tell people who can go defend it. That's about the size of it. The Silverfangs, they've sworn to defend the Wyld, and they sort of miss the difference between Gaian spirits and wild spirits. But mostly they just sort of leave the Wyld-related duties to other tribes, i.e. the Red Talons or the Black Furies. They feel it's the best to serve according to your talents. The Uktena, there's a lot of spiritual philosophers amongst the Uktena, and most range from pragmatic to fanatical. But also, much like the Red Talons, a number of Uktena have also fallen to wild spirit as well. The Wendigo don't really single out wild places to defend. Their kinfolk and their own territory take precedence over that. The Stargazers, then, believe in balance in all things. They developed the opposition more so to the Weaver than to the Worm, as the rest of the Garrow did. But they are, however, vigorous defenders of the Wyld by default, then. They take this philosophy back to the rest of the Beast Court. And they believe that, defending the Wyld will bring them closer to finding the findings of the Henegioke. It is their goal as such to unite all of the pieces of it. And that's pretty much the Garrow summed up in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Where I would say in terms of seeing the Wyld, the Black Furies have the most right idea, but everything else, you can see the cracks in the philosophies of all the different tribes, how there's no perfect tribe. Because after all, we did that small video as to whether or not there is a heroic tribe or heroic person in Werewolf the Apocalypse, and the conclusion we came to is nobody within the Garrow Nation. That's something you just can't find there.
And that's the genius. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, it's because nobody really has the correct perception of the Wyld or Gaia anymore. because your own obsession with fighting the worm wherever it breeds and dwells has gotten in the way of that.
And that's why the writing of the game is so fantastic in general.
There's a question, how do we fight the worm? And everyone has their own unique answer, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
The irony is the game is more human than we want to take it for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun to play as a werewolf.
Speaking of the
Good.
Yep.
As speaking of the human side of things, again, I'm taken back to the original 1990-something Stalker film where you have the Stalker himself, the writer, and the professor. Well, using the zone as an analogy not only for God but also the wild. On the human front, you absolutely will get these three reactions. You'll have people that see the wild as a source of life and needs to be protected. So that's how you get human-aligned sympathizers to the Guru and also mages as well, which is where I came up with my rewriting idea for the technocracy in the Midwest. Then you have the professor who straight up wants to destroy it, which you end up with people willingly getting sponsored by Pentex, the Imbued, and all sorts of other nonsense. And then you have the writer who can be whichever the pendulum swings. Somebody who's just sick of this disgusting world of entropy and stasis and just wants to find something new, but upon finding it has no idea what to think.
It's so Kyle, how do you like World of Darkness and you don't like Warhammer 40k?
Because there's hope.
Because it has werewolves.
There's hope in 40k. You're just not looking for it.
There hasn't been any in what I've seen of it.
It's too complicated.
There have just been things that want to kill other things and things that kill other things, and these things don't like these things, so they kill them. And everything just gets shittier and shittier and shittier. In the World of Darkness...
You do like Khorne, though.
I do like Khorne, but that's only because, he's honest about it. Same with the orcs. In the World of Darkness, there are people who goddamn try. They try so fucking hard to make the world a better place. You have the fucking Salubri. You have the Bone Gnars. You have, and to an extent, maybe even the Child of Gaia. They goddamn try. And that is something that I never have seen in Warhammer. Granted, I don't know enough about the lore to pass judgment on that, but from what I have seen of Warhammer, nobody goddamn tries. All they want to do is kill the enemy, and they think that killing the enemy will just make the world a better place. It won't. You have to do more than just kill the bad guy. Hopefully what you say, Kyle, does not age like spoiled milk. Hopefully it doesn't. Likely it will, because,
I want to introduce you to Azrael from the Dark Angels book, and you're going to fall in love with that guy.
Well, isn't he, hot as shit?
All of them are.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Let me guess. One is a man who's 9 feet tall and 800 pounds to straddle my chest, sit on it, and then punch me into the ground so hard it leaves an indentation, where he pulls back his fist for one more punch that's so hard I explode.
So basically, I want him to sit on my face, and then I'll have the encavement of his butt cheeks on my face, that
he kills me the same way Pop Claw kills his landlord in The Boys.
Good lord.
God damn.
Yummers.
The Fairbraids. Let's talk about the rats.
Yes, the book only talks about the fucking ratkin and the Ananasi for some reason. So the ratkin, they were once charged by Gaia, as we've said, to curtail and keep in check the growth of human civilization. But after they got fucking slaughtered by the Garrow during the War of Rage, they were forever changed. They believed themselves forgotten at best and betrayed at worst by Gaia, and so their allegiance turned to the Wyld. Most of the ratkin, for the duration of the War of Rage, retreated into the spirit world to hide from the murders of the Garrow. And from this, they sort of developed a genetic predisposition that they suppose is their force of chaos and change. If the Wyld had a chosen people, it would definitely be the ratkin. and this has led to them either just being wild extremists or outright terrorists. By their nature, the ratkin are Darwinists. They will regularly just purge the weak and ill, and want to do that to the humans as a whole because they exist in too great a number. The ratkins seek, first and foremost, to bring the destruction of mankind itself. And in all honesty, because of their overwhelming numbers, they are very confident in their ability to win against the worm and the weaver. They are the army of the wild.
You're heretics. You're heretics. That's what you are. You're heretics. You are fossils of a bygone age that doesn't exist anymore, and you refuse to reform.
Well, no, they're just going to kill everything. They're
That just
basically
reminds me,
Rats.
like,
good old
where
eco-fascists.
are the rats? We fight.
The rats. The rats.
What are you
Germa,
talking about?
Germa's a ratkin. Germa's a ratkin.
There are two
He's a
other
ratkin
songs I
in
was
denial.
thinking of. There is Rats by Clutch, and then there is also I think what was that song Rusty Cage did? It was I think Pack of Rats by Rusty Cage was the other one. Look, just a little off topic. If you love some like dark indie hip hop, go listen to Pack of Rats by Rusty Cage. That song and the music video is incredible. Shout out to Rusty Cage. He's also the inspiration for poor narrator as a character. Go watch his fucking shit.
He
Oh
is talented.
shit! Nice.
And so the ratkins suck. Do the spiders suck as much?
To an extent.
Cheese doesn't suck.
No. So the Ananasi, they are surprisingly well. What's up? Oh, okay. The Ananasi are surprisingly well dedicated to the preservation of the wild. They elicit change to stave off the results of stagnation, and there is a unique, specialized faction of the Ananasi known as the Kumatoi. Like the Kumatoi, like all Ananasi, lack rage. They employ patience, consistency, attention to detail in place of anger. And they boast an overall awareness and understanding of the natural order of things that is found even within the madness of chaos. Not only has it been successful, but it has been far more effective in its subtlety than the methods employed by a lot of the Ovid contemporaries. They don't claim to elicit purely positive change. They are quick to point out that any change, even one that might have a negative effect, is preferable to stagnation. Even disruptive change is superior to the outright destruction of the worm or the suffocating laws of the weaver. And evolution, by far, is the subtlest but the most powerful weapon available to the Kumatoi. Or Kamati, pardon me. Though through conscious effort on the part of the Ananasi, entire species of insects within an ecosystem can be altered in a short period of time. And the order and stasis exemplified by insects, even in nature, have become a bane to is important to the weaver and become a bane to the wild. But by manipulating the basics of the food chain, the Kamati can force a species of insects to become far more aggressive in regard to their hunting process, and they break from the scientifically accepted habits and defy the laws of the weaver through the Kumatoi forcing their evolution in a way, and that achieves a wild victory. Very subtle, but a very effective means of changing the natural order of things without completely upsetting the balance of nature. And in the places of the world where the weaver strands are thinner, in rural areas and farmland, the Kamati are minor in practice while remaining very significant. Farmers, will be overwrought with pestilence, and, the Kumatoi of the area stop hunting insects. And the cattle start growing ill from blood loss because the Ananasi start feeding on them, and they become a self-contained mini Triat in a way. The Kamati strive to maintain as much balance as possible with the wild's best interests in mind. They effectively protect and promote some of the most secure and powerful thresholds in Gaia. I think that they're actually incredibly effective at what they do. They change ecosystems. That's what they do. They will go into an ecosystem and fundamentally change it from the ground up. If the insects behave differently, the birds and the smaller animals need to behave differently to catch them. And then the larger predators need to behave differently to catch them until you've changed the entire, outlook of an ecosystem. It's really incredible.
There you go. The supposed perfect beings are the Anunnaki.
Yes.
Once again,
But
supposed.
then again, they're also playing by their own rules, laws, and weaving their own webs. Haha. So even though they are working with it does seem Wyld-like, but it's definitely a lot more Weaver influenced.
I mean, yeah, it's the
After all,
Anunnaki. It's
there
kind of
are
hard
a lot of heretics amongst the Anunnaki.
It's kind of hard to escape that, the Weaver comparison when you're an Anunnaki. That's why the Garo hate them so much.
Yeah.
Of course, the Anunnaki don't like anybody to begin with, as we talked about. So, what's up?
Yeah, because after all, they're a house divided.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They all don't like each other.
Yeah.
And now to talk about things that
here's the
What's up?
thing.
Good.
Is it possible to fall to the wild? Yes, but it's complicated. With the worm, it's just a straight devil deal. And your own feelings as a person to manage yourself and like your inner chakra, so to speak, results in you falling to the worm. With the Weaver, it's becoming a boring, banal person who's obsessed with big government control. With the Wyld, it's your own failings that cause you to fall to the wild. You only fall to the wild once you're directly exposed to wild stuff, like a wild spirit possessing you or giving you power. You evolve so quickly, you can't keep up with the speed of the wild. You can't handle the changes going on with your own body, and it causes you to snap. You can't maintain your life anymore, so you check out and become a Gorgon. We'll talk about the Gorgons in a minute, but that's the way you supposedly fall to the wild. There are cases of that. Some of them are marauders, but not necessarily Gorgons. It's you can't handle the speed and stress of life. You snap and you become possessed by the wild after your ego checks out.
Yes.
That's how it works.
It is as hardcore psychedelic users call it an ego death.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, you surrender to the wild at the end of the day. That's how it happens.
Yes. So,
and
another thing that the Wyld really doesn't like: vampires. Vampires, in of themselves, are antithetical to the ideas of the Wyld. There's nothing generative about vampires. They do not create anything. They cannot bring forth new life. And what life they do have, they very unnaturally preserve it. They are useful antagonists, however. They can be agents of change. Most will have no idea what the Wyld is or how they can impact it or what they do to impact it. And any effect they do have on it is entirely coincidental. But in that mess of corruption, destruction, and intrigue, it will make for a good agent of change, or an antagonist, as the book puts it. But then again, and we started to ask this question with Bacchus in the end of Rage Across New York. What happens if a wild spirit did decide to claw its way into a Cainite? I don't know, Vic, what do you think?
Shenanigans.
Yeah, I left Vigo's fate ambiguous at the end of the New York game, because what happened with him is that Bacchus, by being next to Vigo in incarnate form, was possessing him with wild spirits that he couldn't see, replacing his Koldunic sorcery with something else. And in doing so, turned a ticking time bomb of the worm that was Vigo into an agent of chaos that, while he's still going to go out and cause destruction, was going to do so in a more controlled way, which was Bacchus' ultimate plan with Vigo.
Huh.
Yep.
With the way... Oh, sorry.
That is funny. That is funny as hell.
Because after all, what do we get with the Wyld? Ravnos, Gangrel, some Malkavians, in terms of quote-unquote wild vampires.
Not the worst thing that could happen.
Speaking of
go ahead.
Oh yeah, definitely. with those three clans hypothetically being directly influenced by the Wyld, I like to introduce to you a little independent game you could get on Steam. It's a, I think, PS1 style. I wouldn't call it a horror game. It's more like a thriller. It's called That Which Gave Chase. And the whole point of the game is supposed to leave with more questions and answers, but essentially, you're a dog sledder, and there's this weird scientist guy that's guiding you, and this scientist guy is giving you ominous warnings of saying like his will is not of his own. And they're basically studying the behavioral patterns of caribou and how the fuck do they survive in the middle of nowhere. Basically, the plot twist is mushrooms, essentially. So, in a weird sense, I would like to believe that maybe the Wyld for vampires give vampires almost like a higher sense of like purpose, of almost like a weird like destiny, I guess you could say. Or maybe I'm being too weavery with my thoughts right now.
I don't know. I mean,
if you want to see that game get played out, Oni Plays did a video on it 8 months ago.
oh, neat. I will say though that Vic's explanation does hold some merit, because Vigo did oddly seem a bit more clear in his objective once he had the wild spirit imbued in him. Because what did he say to Sylvester when he met him again? He said that he heard. Where did he say he wanted to go?
They were going to scrap. If he wasn't possessed, that would have resulted in a fight to the death between the two. What the wild spirit did is that it replaced the evil chaos with a good chaos. And it allowed Vigo to reconcile his feelings with his grudge with Sylvester, resulting in a nicer ending between the two.
Yeah, but it did say that there was like another plane he wanted to visit. I don't recall what exactly he said, but I know he wanted to go somewhere, and I think that was a result of the wild spirit. What?
Because after all, Vigo's ultimate goal is that he wants to be like Lucifer and Satan, where he overcomes the world and then eventually moves on to the higher planes. But now he's going to attempt that goal in a much different way, where it but it got the ball rolling, so to speak.
I personally would like to see a Demon the Fallen campaign where Vigo claws his way into the realm.
Hi, guys. He comes into contact with the cryptic or Faustian. There it is. We put a pin in him for him to appear in a later live play.
I don't know. Look,
let's go.
Any opportunity we get to listen to Ham play Vigo, I'm all ears, because god damn it, I can't help but love the shit out of Vigo. Anyway,
we really like Vigo and we like Ragnar.
We really do.
Do we need to go into mage actually? Because we did a whole mage conversation.
Yes, we do. Mages.
Well, we might need to.
You should mage yourself now.
Yes, I should mage myself now.
I'm going to get. So I'm just to recap what we've already said. Yeah, the technocracy have straight up lost that ability, and to the point where they are the embodiment of banality so well written that they are banal to read in real life.
That's fine.
The traditions, they kind of have it. There are some who refer to the Triat from the different names, like the Shanti of creation, the Shanti of stasis, and the Shanti of entropy, Wyld, Weaver, and Worm, respectively. And there are also orphan mages and minor organizations that do not have a presence in the primary books, but the whole point of them being mentioned is to let the storytellers come up with their own ideas for orphan mage societies or mini secret societies, where it's just people who may have gotten the idea and they are acting upon it, which, again, my idea for the Midwest technocracy was that, but taken to such an extreme level that it's an entire region of the United States to a degree, the Midwest flyover states. So, all right, now we have to go into the faction specifically. Do you want to start with the with the wizard mages or the techno-fascist mages?
Well, I
Well,
mean,
it's
the book
with
itself just gives an
every-
overview, so
with
go
every
ahead.
mage made the ascension. With every mage made the ascension, they're all wrong. Every tradition is wrong. Every tradition is heretical in of its own existence. Even stuff that, even the traditions that seem peaceful and keep to themselves, like the Akashic Brotherhood and the Cult of Ecstasy, are wrong in their beliefs. And even something like the Celestial Chorus, the mages that get their power from God, if that's the Wyld, then they get their power from the Wyld. They're heretical in of themselves because the Celestial Chorus are in such a rush to stop living and go to heaven. That's the heretical thought behind it. You're supposed to be on Earth. You're supposed to make the Earth a better place, but you want to leave the Earth behind to go to heaven.
Because
that's
you're
what's wrong
being
with you.
Can you
fucking
blame them? The Earth
selfish.
sucks.
Yeah.
But they're
I-
being selfish pricks. Fuck them.
I don't know. I quite
That
like
is
this
true.
place. That's just me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you get two very different people when it comes to World of Darkness. You get the people that played Werewolf first, then Mage, or Mage first, then Werewolf. And that ultimately decides how you view Mage the Ascension as a game. But out of all the traditions, to me, the only one, they're not fully right, but they're close to it, are the Order of Hermes. That's the one that's got their finger the closest to clicking the button. And the only reason why they're off is because their pro-human thoughts led to the creation of the Order of Reason, and they never truly recovered from that loss. It's their own fault why we have the Tenocracy. But you guys came close. You came close. You came to the revelation that it was a reliance on the divine and a reliance on yourself, where you needed to go to both in order to reach enlightenment and ascension. You came close to being the right mages, but your own egos and your own failures caused you to lose. And now we have the World of Darkness the way it is today. You could have made the world a better place, but your own humanity got in the way of that, so to speak. And
Relinquish, walk the path.
if I were to refer to the guys that have lost their way the most, that aren't the Nefandi, that aren't the Tenocracy, it would probably be the Order of Hermes. No, not the Order of Hermes. Why do I say that? Sons of Ether. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, the Sons of Ether. I do remember that, but I spent so much time hating Mage that I realized that I probably should have been actually reading it.
The Sons of Ether in particular, you did the Michelson-Morsley experiment. You came to the conclusion that there is the Aether, that there is the God particle. You immediately abandon that research and start doing science for the sake of science. You stupid bitches. You named yourself after Ether, and yet you do nothing with it.
Yeah.
I'll do
We were
something
so
with
close
it.
to greatness.
Oh.
We were this close.
This is why I say, like, everything related to the Sons of Ether, they're the most popular mage tradition, but they fucking suck as a faction because they don't do anything with their own concept.
Remind me when I'm working on Minnesota Midnights, when I finally get to Mage, to bring you guys along to help me write them, because I have made my own progress, but I do want to figure out more specific stuff, like how they try to interact with their own factions to just keep things under the rug and to make sure that they don't know that they know that they know. Those sort of situations.
If you don't think like they think that you think that you think like they think.
And then enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that taken up to 11.
And
Okay.
do we have other critters? The book doesn't say it, but yes, wraiths and changelings directly tie in with the Weaver, with the worm, with the Wyld.
The Wyld.
I'm getting mixed up now.
They all have the
They
same
tie in
W.
with the
It's like
beginning.
Reynard and Ragnar all over
They do
again.
have ties with the Weaver and the worm. They do have ties with the Weaver and the worm, but the Wyld, yes. Both of those guys stem from the Wyld because the Wyld is the guy who gave you the soul that you have to begin with. Okay. Victor, do you want to talk about the Storm Eater?
Ah, yes.
We have a villain that's directly tied in with the Wyld.
All right. So, glossing through the first few paragraphs of the first page that you gave to me. Wait, do you want me to actually read it, or like do you want me to
paraphrase?
Okay, paraphrase. Basically, that old ass movie Tornado on steroids.
Twister?
Yeah,
Twister.
Fuck, Twister. Sorry.
It's a giant sentient thinking Twister.
I actually just read that. No, not read. Watched that movie like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh
it's
shit,
so
that
goofy.
movie scared the fuck out of me as a kid. The idea of tornado scared the shit out of me. I live here in Northwest, so mountains exist, so it can't happen.
You survived a tornado by being inside of a concrete pipe.
That's that actually. Minnesota has had a couple of tornadoes on their own, but they're really bad in Kansas and Twister Alley.
Yeah.
But it's actually that's very
Damn.
interesting because the worm also has a version of that storm where it's like a tornado, and the imbued Wayward Creed has that as like their end game, like edge.
Fun stuff.
Well, I mean, didn't J.R. Tolkien say that evil cannot create; it could only mock things, or something like that?
Exactly. Which is what the Storm Eater does.
Yep.
It's a giant middle finger tornado.
That literally just douches everything, to be blunt.
Look at me! I'm the Wyld. I'm going around. I'm a natural disaster. This is what Wyld does. This is what your Wyld does. Look at me! I'm the Wyld.
I'm
Is
gonna
that the
douche
imbued saying that, or
everything.
the worm.
There is a direct parallel to the Storm Eater, Goliath, in the story of David and Goliath. He's going out into the battlefield saying, hey, you guys are chicken shit just like your god. If your god's so good, why does he come down and smite me right now?
And then, of course, David comes up with a sling and a stone, which he brought 4 others because Goliath had 4 brothers just in case they decided to, which they didn't.
Because after 1 stone kills 1 man, you don't step up to that. But yeah, the Storm Eater is basically Goliath if he was a tornado.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. David and Goliath, that story vaguely makes me think of Achilles and the heel.
Mm-hmm.
Vaguely.
Yeah. You have all this power, and yet you're brought down by 1 person. Or in the case of the Storm Eater, it was 13 different Geru who all recreated what the Croatan did in order to steal away the Storm Eater.
And it worked.
You may be powerful, but you're not invulnerable.
Yeah. That you're ultimately some asshole that's trying to make fun, that's blaspheming against the Wyld, if you can do that. And yeah, so ultimately fuck the Storm Eater. And this is also the main villain of the Wild West. The entire Wild West setting, this is the main villain.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what he looks like. And if you want to know why he was the villain, it's because the Tenna had him under control, and then the Shadow Lords, in their stupidity, freed him.
Bruh,
Common
man,
Shadow
fuck the
Lord
Shadow
L.
Lord's dog.
Yeah, you stupid motherfuckers.
I don't
Just
care
go
if
back
they
to
are
sucking
Russia, they
Vince's dick
suck.
already. Yeah. You do. What's my purpose? You do what vampires do, but as wolves.
Let me find the Glizzy man that goes on the hyper Glizzy mode activation.
The Glizzy man.
Hyper
I'm just looking at the picture of the Storm Eater, and he
mode.
kind of reminds me of Frieza in his second form. Like, don't ask.
Yeah,
I don't know.
the form where he looks like the devil.
There we
one,
go,
yeah.
entering Glizzy overdrive.
There he is.
I don't know if I could show that on
no.
YouTube. You know what? I'll pull it up. Fine, we're gonna see the Glizzy overdrive.
Play the first 5 seconds of it and then pause it.
If my thing
play
would
the
load,
first
I
5
don't know why. My
seconds.
connection's being shit.
The first
It's a 25-second video. It's so stupid but funny.
It's taking
mash
forever to fucking
1
load.
on your keypad.
Mash 1 on my. Oh wait, no.
Get
Here we
to
go.
the part
We're
where
good.
it's like 20
Entering
seconds.
Glizzy Overdrive.
Get to where it's 20 seconds in the video.
Hang on. What the fuck is
there you
this?
go. Why make content of our own? We can just take another man's content and view it
No,
on our
I'm
channel.
just gonna. I'm closing
Hey,
that. We don't need to see that.
Reddit.
We're a reaction channel now,
We're
everybody.
XQC now. We're gonna
yes,
stand
we're
here and go. We're gonna
oversaturating.
sit here for
We just-
5 minutes, watch somebody else's far better content, and go, "Chud, is this real? Chud, is this real?"
He's SQC. He's Charlie Har, and I'm Asmongold. And we're here.
And I'm EDP. Wait, what?
No. We can't do that.
I'm actually here to pick up a cupcake.
Oh, I just wanted a cupcake, bro. I wasn't gonna drink that
I'm
guy's
ready
blood.
for the epic crossover between EDP and DAP.
Oh, dude. And
My
Doctor
God.
Disrespect now. Let's have a fucking
Hello,
creep
my name is
convention.
Markiplier, and tonight we'll be playing Five Nights at Freddy's. I heard this was a really good game that you guys wanted to request. Dude,
no,
Victor would just be
I'm the
Markiplier.
nostalgic.
No,
Hello, I'm the
here's the
nostalgic
thing with the
critic. I
Storm
remember
Eater.
it, so you don't have to.
The nostalgia critic.
Oh my
Good
God,
lord.
that's so
If
good.
you pull up the Storm Eater in your game, it's just Doug Walker screeching.
Oh, good lord, no.
Now,
We don't want none
with
of
the
that.
Storm Eater, do we think he's going to come back for the apocalypse for the final battle?
Probably.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, with the consumption worm. Because there's a theory in this book that he's going to come back because the red star's in the sky, that he might come back, but I ain't banking on it. I think this guy's gone.
Yeah, it's Madcap.
All right.
Honestly,
about
yeah,
Gorgons.
it seems like this guy was, the Storm Eater is very specifically meant for Wild West. So bringing
Yeah.
the Storm Eater back in like a modern Midnight's game would be more of a mage thing with a Garu crossover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that too.
And now we get to talk about Gorgons. We have Fomori with the worm. We have drones with the Weaver, and have Gorgons, like Medusa, but a little bit crazier than that. Now, what would a wild cult look like? If you guys are wearing a shoe on one foot, a boot on the other, wearing green pants, a brown shirt with a purple blazer on top of it, and a golden bow tie with an orange hat, and it's wacky, crazy, get the fuck out of here with that. It's more people that are looking for improvement and creation. So something as simple as a church can be a cult of the wild. That's what it can be. As long as you're making something, or if you're improving something, that's a wild cult. If they know that the wild is what they're worshiping.
Would you say that the pagan symbol of the green man is part of the wild? See in churches? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, what about that fruit
I was
man,
just
that
about
vegetable
to say,
man?
the fruit man?
Hold on, let me look up the image. It might.
Did you just call me a fruit?
Hey, come on, man. I'm not trying to be mean.
I was just about to say, Minnesota has tons of like theaters in the cities and a lot of stuff that does overlap with that, where they're finding something and they're improving it.
Yeah.
Again, but a lot of that stuff does have a lot of Weaver influences within the context of the World of Darkness because of all of the rules, and sometimes you end up with other stuff bagging it down.
So this is what you get for your service to the wild, but you bite off more than you can chew. You become a Gorgon.
Yep.
And
Yep, that looks about right.
Wasn't this guy in the Tale of Despero?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
made
from
out of
this
food.
Italian painter.
I was
There it
just about
is.
to say, wasn't in Rage Across New York, you had the wolves with a snake body, or snakes with a wolf's head? Were those technically Gorgons?
Yes, it was werewolves who died, and then the wild picked them up and said, "Oh no, I can still use this," and then possessed them and turned them into half snake, half wolf Gorgons. It's
because
the wild deciding that you've checked out, but your body's still usable, and he just sends a spirit into it and then takes control of it.
That
what
is
you get.
horrifying.
Yeah. You
Uh,
will continue to serve
little
the wild
freaky.
even in death.
It's a
Like-
little freaky, but kind of interesting.
I was just
Yeah.
about to say, because I read through the Gorgon pages that you sent me in the private messages,
Yes.
and because again, one of the things I read is that almost never is a Gorgon of human origin And
Mhm.
I was a little confused because if it did happen to a human, then it what?
But no, it's the Wild has found out it's easier for him to find roadkill and dead trees and use that to make gorgons instead.
Okay.
So it can still happen to a human. It just doesn't because it's just easier. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That does okay. I was just about to say because that all right. That raises a lot of ideas.
So with a tree, it can be something as simple as, oh, this is a tree that just came back to life after it looked like it was being killed by a bark-eating amoeba. At its absolute wildest, it can look like PD piranha.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's kind of
What's
funny.
PD piranha? Hold
Yeah.
on.
It's the piranha plant in Mario that,
Walks
according
around.
to canon, he doesn't eat. Yeah, he doesn't eat people. He eats vegetables.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
PD piranha.
And
This
then
guy.
You
No,
fill
do-
it full of water,
do
and
not-
then it gives
do-
people the
do-
belly button fetish.
Yeah.
Ugh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Seriously.
Nintendo.
Damn,
You've
so the
demolished a
Wyld-
generation of people.
Yeah. You didn't just post in the
Oh.
Discord, did you?
I did not. No.
So
Okay.
So the Wyld is responsible for DeviantArt, or is that the worm, or
Yeah.
both?
Well, it's more perverted than that's the worm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's a battleground basically.
Yeah.
A battleground on the digital Umbra.
Huh.
Because yeah, I know of one of my friends, as I said, so I borrow a copy of Gary's mod from a friend of mine, and that friend does a whole bunch of stuff with Gary's mod, and it's funny because both of us kept each other sane throughout 2020, so we didn't lose our minds.
Yeah.
And yeah, as he said, he does a whole ton of stuff on Gary's mod, and there's like a whole sub community that does things with that and Source Filmmaker. So there's a lot of creativity there. So it does have wild influences, but there's also perversion and, well, porn straight up. So that is defilement worm there. So it's two forces constantly at battle, with also a
Mhm.
bit of chastity versus degeneracy.
That's very true as well.
Now there's a few base powers in this book, and I don't think we're wild enough for the Wild in the Book of the Wild. Because you look at these with me, Jay, and you're seeing stuff like Armored Hide, Berserker, Beast Mutation, Claws and Fangs. This is a little lame, in all honesty.
What? I'm thinking of like the plant version of John Carpenter's The Thing when I think of the Wyld's power.
Or not just that, because we also mentioned that you take something like the Imbued, and if you want to go even crazier and unrestrained with it, that's what it can also look like.
All right.
This
Cool.
is where I'm going to talk about 3.5 for a minute. Because in that book, I said, the Wild already has all these different connections to Tzeentch, and he's not just nature, he's just birth and creation in general. Let's go a step further with that. Let's have him be that the Gorgons are more evolved organisms that skipped several centuries of evolution. And that's what you get.
Huh.
So
Okay.
with stuff like that, instead of just those incredibly simple powers, I had stuff like, I don't know, being a psyker from 40k. Let's have it be.
Shit.
Let's have it be
there's
that if
already
you're
Lumina.
if you're a human possessed by the Wild, we'll have it be possible that you can shoot your tears from your eyes like bullets, and that will pierce through armor. Let's have it be that antlers will grow from your head at will and can be used as spears. Let's have it be that you got the skin of a cuttlefish and that you can change your color at will, and even the texture of your skin to blend in. We'll give you 3 hearts. We'll give you the ability to spit your intestines as ropes, as a projectile weapon. We'll have it be that leaves can just grow around your neck, or just you vomit up glue, or your skin is made out of diamonds, or you can just spit lava like blood, or something like that.
Yeah,
Cool.
Magic
the Gathering.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is some care to be taken because some of that does sound a little wormish, like the spitting glue thing. but nothing that a little reflavoring can't, well, fix, for lack of a better word.
Because
It's a tree sap.
Yeah, because those powers themselves don't hurt you. What instead happens is the paradox that follows you. Like, say, these effects on your sanity. I had Wild Taint put in the game, and it's stuff like id inversion, where your wits drops down to 0, and you become a being that can only act on impulse, and that's it. Or,
oh my god, that gives me ideas.
Or reality ripples, where all rolls across the gauntlet are reduced by 2, and sometimes you'll just step sideways just by taking a step in the real world.
Yeah, slip sideways.
Or
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Or Chaos Euphoria. You roll willpower difficulty 8 for every 5 scenes that you're in. If you fail to make any success, you just automatically enter a frenzy, but you're in a euphoric state instead of an angry state the entire time.
I'm thinking, okay, so is this like just were creatures that can get affected by this, or is this any being, be mage, human, or otherwise?
In 3.5, I made it anybody.
Cool.
That gives me so many ideas for when we inevitably write the 3.5 edition of Minnesota Midnights, because wild influence in northern Minnesota above the Chisago County line, oh my goodness, that is going to be amazing.
Because it's, after all, it's you
wait.
not being able to handle what the wild is doing to you, which causes you to become a Gorgon.
Yeah, that is going to be insane. Like, because I already had ideas, like some parts of the gauntlet being so thin that a human being can accidentally walk into their apartment and find themselves in the back rooms and have to get help to get out. I've already had ideas for areas where the gauntlet was thin, but this is a whole nother beast that I feel like Frankenstein getting ready to play with somebody's guts. It feels weird.
What?
There's this that idea of a normal ass human accidentally stepping into the Umbra makes me think of this weird
surreal side scroller Japanese game called Yuminiki.
Yuminiki, yeah. I know. I actually have that game, and I'm still playing it.
Oh, it's a fucking freaky game, but super beautiful at the same time.
I'm still exploring, yeah.
I'm not going to spoil it, but I will say this: the ending is extremely fucked.
I know. I already know what the ending is.
Yeah. Oh shit! It's free to play on Steam. Sorry.
Oh no shit.
Yep. I already have it.
Let me finish playing through Marathon first, but you know.
Yeah.
So, what were we talking about again?
See, what we were talking about was Gorgons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your rapid fucking mutation. See, and yeah.
Yeah, you turn into a plant person for fun.
Yeah.
Yay.
Not just that, but also the skin of a cuttlefish or a chameleon, so you can go invisible, provided that you're not wearing clothes, which is going to be very awkward and weird, but okay.
So Wyld, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
See, don't post it into Discord. Kyle, if you can go into a Google search and pull up what the spore carriers look like for the audience at home.
The spore carriers?
Oh god, the one from Fallout New Vegas?
Oh yeah, those.
Do not post that. That's going to shoot an electric shock through my hands if I see that.
Oh god, I know what those are.
They are freaky looking, yeah.
That is high octane nightmare fuel, that entire dungeon.
Yeah, it really is.
I see them.
Yeah.
They're pretty feral looking.
Yeah, like thankfully they die to a 30-30 lever action pretty quickly. So they didn't give me that bad of nightmares because, well, having 10 out of 10 luck is a really, really powerful.
Yep. So luck and sneak are both broken.
Hey, speaking of things, sorry.
Good.
Speaking of what?
Speaking of things, Mr. Depp, Johnny, that you're scared of. This is very embarrassing for me to admit, but I'll admit it. When I was a kid, I was fucking horrified. I mean horrified. I had nightmares of this thing anytime I saw it on TV. I was horrified of the squirrel from Ice Age.
Really?
Scrat?
Of Scrat?
Yeah, Scrat. Yeah, that squirrel's fucking creepy. It acts like a tweaker, dude.
I'm not.
He's
I
got,
do
Uncanny
see your
Valley.
point.
he's got the bug eyes.
See, like for
It's
me,
Uncanny Valley.
yeah, it is. I just thought like the whole tone of the shorts where he was in just really off-putting as a kid. And I kind of see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
A fish just jumps into his hand and he lets out a war cry and just beats up all the piranhas simply because they threatened his acorn. The
Oh,
acorn
no.
is probably some sort of mystical item, I guess, or a fetter of some kind.
I imagine.
The Scrat short that freaked me out was the one with the time machine and how he goes into existential horror at the end.
I actually didn't see that one.
Yeah, it was like weird, like nihilistic tone to the Scrat episodes.
Oh, it's fucking freaky, dude.
Yeah.
3D animators
kinda-
try not to make the scariest thing imaginable challenge impossible.
Yeah, it's so easy going to Uncanny Valley with that shit.
It's like
Yeah,
watching
dude,
like the
what
early
is
Pixar
that?
demos. They're so fucking scary.
Kyle, didn't you tell me that like you saw Jason the Argonauts and the skeletons freaked you out?
Jason the Argonauts?
Yeah, that might have been someone else who told me that.
I don't
Oh,
remember. Here, let me
look this
think.
shit up.
Jason
Jeez.
the Argonauts.
Yeah, like how stilted the stop motion is with them.
Oh no, I was talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't freak me out as much as Evil Dead 2 did. Like when the chick is dancing, that fucked me up. And honestly, any claymation from who's that really pretentious ass director that does all those stop motion like The Nightmare Before Christmas and all that? What was his name?
Tim Burton.
Henry Selick.
Yeah, Tim Burton.
Tim Burton produced.
But yeah, all the
Henry
shit that he
Selick,
produces were I fucking hate stop motion so much. It's so fucking
Oh, you're
scary.
gonna hate my species, the Varrox. You're gonna fucking hate my original species.
What the hell is
I'll
that?
explain about them later. Oh,
Yeah.
it's an original
David
species that I made.
Romero's shorts.
Yeah.
Like the Pleasant Inn, and this stuff is the stuff that keeps me up at night. And if I do actually want to delve like straight up neck deep in horror, these are the monsters that I will use from David Romero's animated videos from YouTube. Like the Pleasant Inn is one of them. Let me try to remember.
You gotta show me.
He posted
The,
it in
me
studio notes.
Terrifying. Like,
Her
don't hug
suit.
me, I'm scared. Levels
No,
of
like-
freaky.
The time I caught a ghost. Let's see. Yeah, Pleasant Inn is the most famous one with 2.2 million views 4 years ago.
Oh yeah,
Slimy Swamp.
I just watched the preview of that. That's already terrifying. Fuck that.
Scotty animated horror short, like these creepy insect-like things. This is why the Ananazi killed all of the other were insects, because somehow they knew this shit would evolve into the modern day as a result. However, for the explanation of why this happens is they must have missed a couple.
Yeah, probably. It's the
Oh,
only thing I can think
shit.
of. I will say though, just taking a look at this, like watching that screenshot from Pleasant Inn. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me a lot
Nightmare Fuel.
It reminds me a lot of Afraid of Monsters, that the Half-Life mod by Team Psych Scholar.
The tweakers.
Yeah.
Yep, the
just
same
that
guys behind Cry
movement
of Fear.
scares me so fucking bad, dude.
Like, yeah, when it comes to Fomori, that is what does come to mind. The howling that you hear with the chainsaw, the hopelessness, that it's what you would expect if a mortal somehow slipped sideways and ended up in some sort of worm-influenced area of the Umbra. Like, that is the shit you would end up being stuck in. Maybe the dreaming. I don't know. World of Darkness is very complicated, but if you do want to play a Cry of Fear themed game in a World of Darkness then yeah, the Dark Umbra would absolutely be the place to go. And it might be a changeling game, it might be a mage game, or hey, maybe you're feeling really funny and you want to run Hunter's Hunted because you hate yourself.
Or
But
you want to
possible. You
feel
just have to do
sick and
some-
just play Freak Legion.
Holy shit, this Pleasant Inn thing is terrifying.
Yeah.
Damn.
I lack the testicular fortitude to watch such a video, especially since I'd like to sleep tonight.
Watching it
made the
muted,
mistake
so I'm halfway less freaked out.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of watching that with earphones in my bed, like at 9 o'clock at night, right before I was going to sleep.
Dude.
Yeah, I screwed myself.
Yeah, you did. I bet you didn't sleep for a fucking week.
Yeah. And the wild spirits, how about we not go to wild spirits? Just make your own. Honestly, dead ass, just make your own wild spirits.
Yeah, so basically make like Jackson Pollock, throw some shit on a canvas, bam, you get a wild spirit.
There was a fun one called the origami, where it was a piece of white paper that would fold itself into different shapes to express itself.
That's really cool. I like that, actually.
That's in the book, where just think of stuff like, well, it's the wild. Be creative with how you portray the wild spirits. Just create something and use that. That's what a wild spirit would be.
So wait a minute. Would like a corrupted wild spirit take the shape of like a Carcass album cover?
Yes.
Yeah. Like
or it could be something like a school of flying fish that like form a giant fish when you talk to it.
That'd be kind of neat. But like for those that don't know what I'm talking about as far as Carcass goes, I'll pull up the image. We're probably gonna get fucking copyrighted for this just because it's pretty fucked looking.
As long as it's not animated, it's fine.
Oh no, it's not animated at all. It's just this. I'll pull it. I'll put it in the Discord. It's fucked looking. Yeah, this album cover. Basically, what Carcass did is this is a corrupted wild spirit is what it looked like. Yeah. They just took like what was it? Like a medical dictionary, photocopied like a bunch of this shit on it and collaged it together.
It kind of reminds me of the 1997 Postal game.
A little bit, yeah. Like the original one, where you just walked around killing people.
Or The Thing.
Well, to be fair, a lot of them are aiming to gun you down first, and one of the officers has a rocket launcher outside of your home. I'm not sure if that's ATF approved, but hey, there we go.
It reminds me of that video where it's like the ATF agent walked up to a guy in the woods and he's like, "Is that a registered firearm?" And the guy replied, "Are those level 4 plates?"
Fuck.
That actually raises a question. Where does the wild influence end and something more like the wormwood begin? Because, again, calling back to Cry of Fear and Afraid of Monsters, those two games were kind of, sort of, but not really, but kind of were made to give raise to, like, mental health and to let people know that this was a thing that was happening.
It's all about the
raise
intent.
Awareness for that.
It's like when the intent of the creation is to inspire rather than destroy, then it's wild. But if it's a game like, say, Hatred, where the intent is to destroy, then it's wormish.
Okay, that explains a lot, actually. So yeah, technically, with World of Darkness terminology, Cry of Fear, Afraid of Monsters, and to a lesser extent the Postal games would technically be wildish, but in the case of Postal, there would be wormish undertones.
Yes.
Or if you make a game like Rape Play or AIDS Simulator.
Jeez, God, oh God.
AIDS Simulator? Yeah. That's new to me.
Yeah.
Fuck, what was that RPG called?
A Super Combine RPG?
Yes.
No. There was this RPG. I forgot what it was called. Fear and Hunger.
Yeah.
That's a fucking nasty. I would get into that video game if it wasn't so fucking weirdly sexual. Ew.
Yeah, like all the penises in it.
I heard about that.
It's just fucking gross.
I don't remember what it was about.
Again,
yeah, it's that game actually does have some
you have to enter the.
Yeah.
You have to enter this temple for some reason, and you basically just explore it. And depending on which character you pick, you have different goals. If you pick Ragnar, your goal is to just exterminate every monster that's in it. If you play as the thief, your goal is to find a mystical crown that's also in a parallel universe. Don't ask. If you play as the knight, who is a woman, your goal is to find your commander. And if you play the game for longer than half an hour and you don't find him, he dies. And I think that's about it for now. There's a
You
whole
also
bunch
have
of
the
weird
Dark
shit.
Priest,
So,
which is the actual thesis of the game.
Aniki.
Yeah, where the whole thing with him is you try to like raise to godhood in order to well, not raise to godhood. You're trying to demystify religion and create a pro-human future with him.
Which, hilariously, you do end up getting by creating a pro-human religion, which completely subverts the point in the first place.
Yes.
So you can end up creating something that is Wyld inspired, but that you end up with Weaver and Wormish undertones, but it's not. It's a matter of them balance worming themselves together, which is weird because they're almost always trying to fight each other out.
Mm-hmm.
So art being a place where it's Wyld influenced with other stuff coming together is very interesting.
And
it all depends upon the intent. And honestly, it is that fight in and of itself which maintains the balance.
And there we have it. That's the Wyld for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Get creative.
Yeah. I
So
want to
think
be corrupted by the Wyld. It sounds like fun.
Please don't. Your IQ, your mental stats get reduced to like 0, and you end up losing control of your character. So please don't.
You can't handle what's happening to you.
I mean,
and if you do, you are very powerful, but very, 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 very overlapping with a lot of Fomori stuff. So it's a matter of being careful.
In fairness,
it's a balance.
Think of the zone from. Again, think of the zone from Stalker. It's very dangerous, but if you respect, you keep your distance and have a level of respect, you will, for the most part, be fine.
I mean, it's preferable to Bane possession. I'll say that much.
Mm-hmm. And
yes, you can still very much capably die, but yeah, fair enough.
Rather not.
We went somewhere with this episode. We went somewhere.
Well, I mean, it's the Wyld. If it goes everywhere, then we're on brand for it.
And
everywhere and nowhere.
Next episode, we talk about absolute tyranny with the Weaver.
Oh, my favorite.
Oh God! Oh God! I am going
to we are the robots.
An entire hour of that episode, assuming if I'm on it or not, is going to be me rambling about how frickin' boring the technocracy are.
And just how the Weaver is the actual villain of Werewolf the Apocalypse. You just don't notice it.
Or me yelling about how much I hate tyranny.
Yep.
Anyway.
Comparisons between her and Lucifer.
Yeah. Well, no, there isn't one, but you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, good night, everybody.
All right, GN.
Good night.